Chapter 991. After kicking Li Zichao away, Poplar Fruit grabbed the katana and twirled it around. Although the katana was light and not as smooth as the Miaodao, it was still a lethal weapon. It was much more intimidating to others. Finally, Li Zichao's thugs reacted. First, another bodyguard in black quickly jumped onto the high platform. While guarding against Poplar Fruit, he helped Li Zichao up. The other 10 or so thugs also surrounded the high platform. Yanghua swung her sword diagonally behind her, cutting off the ropes binding Duan Xueqing's body. She pulled the ropes away from her body while shielding Duan Xueqing behind her. Bang! Bang! There were several loud sounds of glass breaking. Several figures came into the warehouse. It was Big Brother He and Huang Yongning who had been lying in ambush for a long time. They had been waiting for an opportunity and didn't dare to attack rashly. After all, there were only 5 of them. It wasn't easy at all to save someone from so many people. Not to mention saving someone, the 10 or so thugs upstairs were the first thing they had to deal with. But Poplar Fruit had already started fighting. If they didn't act now, they would completely lose their chance. The thugs upstairs surrounded them. The sound of fighting was suddenly heard. It was as if they had suddenly fallen into a state of chaos. But on the first floor, there was still a confrontation on the high platform. Poplar Fruit waved the katana and used flashy moves to scare them. He majestically stood in front of Duan Xueqing, crossed his arms and shouted, "Come on! Come on!" At this time, Li Zichao was helped up. He staggered and stood up straight. Then Li Zichao pushed away the bodyguard in black. He angrily grabbed his clothes and shouted, "Hit him!" He also shouted at the thugs below the stage, "Kill him. If he dies, it's on me." Li Zichao ordered. Immediately, more than a dozen thugs quickly took out water pipes and machetes from the place where they hid the machetes. They were about to climb up the platform aggressively. Poplar Fruit had to face the siege of the thugs. But before that, he had to deal with Li Zichao's bodyguard in black. The latter took out a baton from his waist and swung it. A black steel baton popped out. He calmly walked towards Poplar Fruit. Although he was wearing a suit, his powerful body exuded a powerful aura. A master. He was a master who could even compete with Meng Sanhua. The reason why Yanghua was able to deal with the black-clothed man so easily was because he took advantage of the element of surprise. The others thought that he was as vulnerable as an ordinary person, and were unprepared. Then they were whipped by his arm until their ribs were broken, and they fainted directly. However, Poplar Fruit was not afraid of him. After all, even Meng Sanhua was no match for him. At most, it would take some effort. There were too many thugs below the stage. Poplar Fruit could not drag them up the stage. Otherwise, even if he could protect himself, he would not be able to protect Duan Xueqing. He had to deal with the man in black first. The baton was made of steel. It was even better than the steel of the knife. When Poplar Fruit swung his knife at him, he felt a small crack on the blade. If he swung it a few more times, the entire knife might break. He did not know that his opponent was also very surprised. He did not expect Poplar Fruit to be so strong that he almost lost his grip on the baton. He must have been a master in the army. Poplar Fruit observed his opponent carefully. The man in black looked to be in his 30s. His physical condition was still in peak condition. He still had the strong aura of a soldier. He must have just retired a few years ago. However, Poplar Fruit would not go easy on him just because he was a soldier. At this moment, Poplar Fruit could not afford to relax. There was no time to confront him. Poplar Fruit leaped and swung his knife horizontally. This move was very ordinary, but with Poplar Fruit's wind-like speed, it was very powerful. The man in black was shocked and hurriedly blocked with his baton. If he was a step slower, his arm would have been dismembered by Poplar Fruit. Even though he managed to block it, but with Yanghua's powerful and heavy chop, his hand that was holding the baton was shaken to the point of almost letting go. However, Poplar Fruit's move was just a feint. The real killer move was yet to come. Without giving the man in black any time to react, Poplar Fruit actually let go of the knife in the air and threw a punch. The man in black subconsciously blocked it with his other hand. He was a soldier after all. He had experienced life and death situations in the past. His conditioned reflexes were also a part of his strength. However, Poplar Fruit's second punch was already coming. Poplar Fruit took a step forward and used his back foot as a fulcrum to punch with all his strength. If Meng Sanhua had the time to look down, he would be dumbfounded by what he saw, because Poplar Fruit's attack speed and strength were half of what they had when they sparred. This time, the man in black did not have any time to react. Poplar Fruit's punch landed on his right shoulder. Half-step bursting fist. Back then, Guo Yunshan used half-step bursting fist to conquer the world. Although Poplar Fruit's half-step bursting fist was not as powerful as Guo Yunshan's, it was not far off. With a blood-curdling scream, the black-clothed man was sent flying backward. To make an iron-blooded veteran scream, the pain must be unbearable for normal people. Yes, Poplar Fruit's punch directly shattered his shoulder blade. Even if it did not KO him, it made him lose his ability to fight. Poplar Fruit was merciful. If it were not for Huang Yongning's previous warning, and if he did not want to become a bloodthirsty maniac, everyone could guess what would have happened if he had punched the man in black's head. However, defeating one man in black was not a big deal, because there were already a few men in black with machetes swarming up. Poplar Fruit squatted down slightly, and picked up the baton that the man in black had dropped. He did not use his previous knife mainly because the quality of that knife was too low, and its lethality was too terrifying. One cut would definitely draw blood, so it was better to use this high-quality steel baton. Taking a deep breath, Yang Guo sank his chi into his dantian and stood on the stage, holding his staff in a defensive stance. In front of him stood a few thugs with machetes, and behind him was Duan Xueqing, who was still sitting on the chair, holding the rope on her body because her legs were weak. Poplar Fruit could not retreat, and there was no way to retreat. Li Zichao did not even look at the man in black who was struggling on the ground. He only paid attention to Poplar Fruit, who he hated to the core. However, now they had the upper hand in the situation. There were more than a dozen thugs. The human wave tactic could drown Poplar Fruit. The 5 reinforcements upstairs were still being entangled by the thugs, because Huang Yongning had warned in the headset not to use guns unless it was the most dangerous time. So if they fought barehanded with the thugs with machetes, how could they end the battle so quickly? Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations, greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 992. Yang Guo stood in front of Duan Xueqing with his staff in hand. His aura was fierce, and he actually managed to intimidate the thugs who were wielding blades. He had the aura of a man who could hold back 10,000 men. What are you waiting for? Chop him up. Li Zichao was impatient. He kicked one of the hatchet men away. The hatchet men were all from the underworld. They looked at each other and suddenly felt that they were very cowardly. Their opponent was only one person, and he wasn't holding a knife. He was only using a baton. How could they not dare to attack with knives? Chop him to death. One of the hatchet men shouted. Suddenly, everyone's morale was boosted. They shouted and waved their machetes at Poplar Fruit. Chop the old master to death. Poplar Fruit looked at the cold light that cut through the sky. He felt his scalp tingle. If he moved around, he could definitely take care of them one by one. But Duan Xueqing was behind him. If he dodged, wouldn't Duan Xueqing be in danger? Poplar Fruit could only brace himself and force himself to explode with faster speed and sharper eyesight. The baton in his hand disappeared. In less than a second, he blocked the 3 machetes. Then he moved forward and pushed the 3 men who were facing Poplar Fruit back with brute force. At the same time, Poplar Fruit also dodged the 2 machetes that came from his left and right. He wouldn't show any mercy. Poplar Fruit gritted his teeth and swung his baton at the man on his right. There was a crisp sound. This heavy blow directly broke the hatchet man's arm. Don't doubt the power of the baton. Although Poplar Fruit didn't learn how to use the baton, this kind of steel baton was very lethal. The end of the baton was relatively thin, and the pressure it produced was very high. Compared to ordinary batons and pipes, it was more accurate to hit people. In addition, with Poplar Fruit's strength, breaking the arms was not a problem at all. As for the guy on the left, after Poplar Fruit dodged his machete, he suddenly let go of his right hand. His left hand grabbed the handle of the baton in the air and hit it horizontally. He only used the end of the handle to hit people. Poplar Fruit also hit a vital point and directly knocked the hatchet man on the left to the ground. Taking advantage of the fact that the people behind had yet to catch up, Yanghua quickly swung the stick around like a game of whack-a-mole. The three people who had just struggled to get up on the ground were knocked unconscious by the stick on their heads. Of course, Poplar Fruit was controlling his strength. He didn't cripple them and turn them into idiots. He only knocked them out, leaving a bright red bruise on their forehead. This was already considered merciful. Due to Poplar Fruit's strength, he had knocked out 5 people in an instant. The hatchet men behind him panicked and took a step back. Poplar Fruit was on guard when he suddenly heard a rustling sound. Then, Duan Xueqing let out a cry of surprise. Not good. Poplar Fruit shouted inwardly. Although the corner he had chosen was more suitable for defense, it was still a high platform. If someone noticed, they could still climb up from behind. Indeed, one of the clever hatchet men had found a loophole in Poplar Fruit's defense. Taking advantage of Poplar Fruit's carelessness, he wanted to climb up from behind. When Poplar Fruit turned around, the hatchet man had climbed up the high platform with a sneer on his face. He was about to pick up a machete that was placed to the side. If he were to catch Duan Xueqing, everything would be back to square one. Poplar Fruit would have no advantage. Thankfully, Poplar Fruit noticed it. He took a step back and threw the baton in his hand, smashing it directly into the hatchet man's face. A muffled sound rang out, and the hatchet man was knocked unconscious. However, Poplar Fruit did not have a weapon in his hand. The hatchet men who had been frightened by him mustered up their courage. They shouted and brandished their machetes to attack. Poplar Fruit retreated to Duan Xueqing's side. He pulled her up and swung the armchair that she had been sitting on. The armchair was not sturdy. Although it had knocked one person over, it fell apart. Poplar Fruit quickly picked up Duan Xueqing and jumped down from the high platform. Behind him, 6 or 7 hatchet men chased after him with machetes. They all jumped down one after another. Poplar Fruit only had one thought, which was to rush out with Duan Xueqing in his arms. With his speed, he could get out of the warehouse and rush to Xiao Li's Land Rover. Poplar Fruit did not see that a figure had jumped down from the second floor and stood between him and the hatchet men. Stop! Put down the machete. If you don't, I'll shoot. Meng Sanhua shouted. He was the best in kung fu. After taking care of the hatchet men in front of him, he quickly jumped down from the metal frame on the second floor. Meng Sanhua could not fight the hatchet men with his bare hands. He had to take out his pistol. However, no one believed him. The hatchet men were still chasing after him. Bang! A loud sound rang out. The world fell silent. The hatchet men, holding their machetes, stared blankly at the crater less than a meter away from them. They were all dumbfounded. F***CK. Was that a real gun? The hatchet men who were arrogant just a moment ago, peed their pants. Who dared to be faster than a bullet? Seeing Meng Sanhua raise the gun and aim at them, the hatchet men threw their machetes aside and kneeled on the ground. They looked very professional. Since Meng Sanhua had taken out his gun, the remaining hatchet men on the second floor were quickly defeated. He Wenjua and the rest escorted the surrendered hatchet men down the stairs. It was finally over. Poplar Fruit turned around and secretly sighed in relief. However, Poplar Fruit still had some complaints about Huang Yongning. If he had not been afraid of hurting Li Zichao, and did not want to make a big deal out of this, he would have taken out his gun earlier. Wouldn't he have been able to take care of these guys directly? In Poplar Fruit's eyes, these guys were all trash. If he had not needed to protect Duan Xueqing, Poplar Fruit could have taken care of 20 to 30 hatchet men by himself. Of course, he took advantage of the terrain to take a detour and take care of them one by one. Even so, Poplar Fruit's battle record was quite impressive. There were 11 people who had fallen in his hands. Among them, 2 were experts. One was knocked out by Poplar Fruit before he could fight back, and the others were not easy to deal with. Otherwise, He Wenjua and the rest of the special forces would not have taken so long to take care of them. Among them, all 11 had lost their ability to fight, except for a few who were knocked out by Poplar Fruit mercifully. The rest had broken bones or were even disabled. Those who had not fainted or had woken up from the pain were rolling on the ground and wailing. Call an ambulance. Huang Yongning looked at the mess left by Poplar Fruit from the top of the stairs and spoke to his teammates through the earpiece. However, there was a sudden change. A sudden gunshot made everyone's nerves tense. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 993. Other than Li Zichao, who could not be dealt with, who was still showing off, the other thugs were obediently squatting on the side with their hands on their heads. There was no other way. These guys were either special forces or soldiers. They could not afford to offend them. Moreover, each of them had a gun in their hands. If they were accidentally killed, who would they cry to? Of course, none of the people who were beaten up by Poplar Fruit could stand up. Those who were unconscious were still unconscious. Those who were seriously injured were now wailing in pain. They would rather faint. On the other hand, the man in black whose shoulder blade was broken by Poplar Fruit was still a tough guy. He gritted his teeth and endured. Large beads of sweat kept appearing on his forehead. He-Wenjua's gaze stopped on his face for a moment. However, he did not care. Even if they were comrades in the army in the past, now that they were accomplices to a villain, he was not worthy of his sympathy. Poplar Fruit supported Duan Xueqing and sat down. He took out a pack of tissues and wiped the dirt on her face. He then borrowed a police jacket from Xiaoli and put it on her. Duan Xueqing was not seriously injured. However, when she was struggling, her hands and feet had different degrees of abrasions. She looked a lot more haggard. "Does it hurt?" Poplar Fruit asked. Duan Xueqing shook her head. She did not say anything. She only took the bottle of water from Poplar Fruit and took a sip. Her body was very weak. Compared to when she had just graduated from university, she was much thinner. Poplar Fruit could guess that this was all because of Pai Din 1. Duan Xueqing, after half a year, still could not get over it. Although she was cold and indifferent, as if she did not care about anything, she actually understood. It was just that all her emotions were stored in her heart, and she did not want to communicate with others. From the way Duan Xueqing shouted for her to die, it could be seen that because of Pai Din 1, Duan Xueqing had been tortured to the point that she did not have any attachment to life. He didn't want to be a burden to others. Perhaps death was also a form of relief. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment before saying, "Pai Din 1 is outside. Are you willing to meet him?" To be honest, Poplar Fruit really didn't want to tell her about Pai Din 1. He didn't even want her to see Pai Din 1 again, because Pai Din 1 had already hurt her once. He had ruthlessly cut her heart with a knife. Who knew if their reunion would bring harm to Duan Xueqing a second time? However, Poplar Fruit thought about how Pai Din 1 was not any better than Duan Xueqing. He thought about how Pai Din 1 dragged his injured leg all the way to Yangcheng to look for him. He even got beaten up by him. He thought about how he was so anxious that he even cried today. Duan Xueqing slowly raised her head and looked at Poplar Fruit. From her expression and eyes, he could not see any fluctuations in her emotions. However, Poplar Fruit could still guess that her heart was in turmoil. "It's because of him that I was able to save you." Poplar Fruit could not bear to see her like this. He sighed and said this. Duan Xueqing's eyes moved. It seemed that there were some emotions in them. Poplar Fruit briefly told her about how Pai Din 1 went to Yangcheng. He said with some regret, "If it wasn't because I didn't trust him, you wouldn't have been captured." Duan Xueqing turned her head away. She did not want Poplar Fruit to see her face. Poplar Fruit only heard her hoarse voice as she softly said, "That matter, was it him?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, "It was him, but he was forced to do it in the past. Also, there are some things that he didn't lie to you about. For example, he really is a wedding photographer. Actually, he also received the punishment that he deserved. After he was taken away, one of his legs was broken. Why don't you give him a chance to make up for it?" Poplar Fruit persuaded. Hearing a sniffling sound, Duan Xueqing straightened her neck and said, "That's enough." After that, she did not say anything else. Poplar Fruit waited for a long time. He did not know if Duan Xueqing was willing to give Pai Din 1 a chance to apologize. Scratching his head, Poplar Fruit secretly sighed and said in his heart, "Forget it, Bai. I've already helped you up to this point. It can be considered that I've done my best." It wasn't easy to open up a heart that had been sealed for half a year. Perhaps Pai Din 1 would persevere and pursue Duan Xueqing again. After half a year or even longer, there was still hope for him to succeed. After all, Duan Xueqing still had feelings for him last year. While Poplar Fruit was comforting Duan Xueqing, the others were cleaning up the mess. Huang Yongning looked at the wounded lying on the high platform in disarray, and couldn't help but feel a little frightened. This lethality. Huang Yongning turned to look at He Wenjue and shook his head with a bitter smile. Is he really not from your army? He Wenjue, on the other hand, was very calm. He was already used to this scene. He smiled and said, I hope that he is from our army. He usually comes to our place as a sparring partner, and lets them play with his strength. What was there to be surprised about? He Wenjue was with Poplar Fruit at the bank. He saw Poplar Fruit beat the gangsters to death, and even broke the bank's tile floor. Now these guys, Poplar Fruit, must have gone easy on them. Captain, what should we do with these people? Meng Sanhua asked as he kicked a thug who secretly looked up. He Wenjue turned to look at Huang Yongning and asked, Can you handle it here? Huang Yongning smiled and said, It's okay. Just a few hooligans. He hesitated and pointed at Li Zichao, who was glaring at Poplar Fruit. He said, That guy is a bit tricky. Didn't you say not to arrest him? Letting him go is giving face to the people behind him. If they still give you trouble, let me know. He Wenjue patted his chest and said. At this time Li Zichao's phone rang. He jumped down and went to get it. No one stopped him. She only heard him grumble a few words before he hung up the phone. Li Zichao walked over and looked at Huang Yongning casually. He flicked his bangs and snorted. Are you happy now? If it's okay, I'm leaving. My dad is calling me for dinner. I have to catch a plane. If I'm late, will you be responsible? I really want to beat him up. Meng Sanhua muttered to Yang Zhengdong as he twisted his foot on the ground. Forget it. Don't bother with this asshole. Yang Zhengdong shook his head. Captain and the others can't do anything to him. He Wenjue chose to ignore Li Zichao's provocation. Huang Yongning, on the other hand, took 2 deep breaths and pointed at the exit with his left hand. He smiled and said, Please. Li Zichao snorted and proudly shook his head as he walked outside. He didn't even look at his 2 bodyguards on the ground. When he passed by Poplar Fruit and Duan Xueqing, Poplar Fruit took a step forward and stood in front of Duan Xueqing. Li Zichao chuckled and mouthed silently, This is not over. Poplar Fruit's face was as calm as water, but in his eyes, there was a burst of murderous intent. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 994. Although Yang Guo was very calm, she looked like a wild beast that wanted to devour people. This made Li Zichao's heart suddenly lose confidence. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back. He felt that it was too embarrassing for him to be so cowardly. He waved his hand, snorted, and left. Bah! Meng Sanhua waited until he was out of the door and spat at his back in disgust. What a piece of trash. At this time, they heard Xiao Li's question in their headphones. Captain, why did he come out? Hey, don't go. Xiao Li was waiting for the ambulance outside when he saw Li Zichao, who was about to leave. He stopped him. This caused a physical conflict with Li Zichao, who was already irritated. How could Li Zichao be beaten by Xiao Li? He was immediately pressed to the ground. Xiao Li pressed on the headset, which also transmitted Li Zichao's scolding. Huang Yongning pressed the headphones and said irritably, Okay, let him go. Why keep him? You can't catch him. Roger. Xiao Li shouted. He then stood up from Li Zichao's back, but he didn't even help him. He was extremely disgusted with Li Zichao's hedonistic son. Li Zichao got up, patted the dust off his body, and shook his head dizzily. He pointed at Xiao Li fiercely and said, You've got guts, I'll remember you. Xiao Li waved his arm and glared at him. Li Zichao was shocked. He took a few steps forward and quickly got into his BMW. He didn't bring his car with him to Jiangnan. This car was borrowed from a nightclub owner. He started the car and left. Before he left, Li Zichao didn't forget to stick his head out and give Xiao Li the middle finger. Let him drive away. That son of a bitch. Xiao Li pressed the headphones and said angrily. Forget it, don't worry about him. We can't afford to offend them. Huang Yongning comforted. After Li Zichao left the warehouse, Poplar Fruit walked over and asked, "Brother Huang, can we leave first? I want to send Xueqing home. Look at her. She's hungry, tired and injured." He hadn't called the Duan family yet. He planned to call them when he sent her home. Huang Yongning looked at He Wenjue, and He Wenjue nodded. Huang Yongning then said, "All right, you guys go back first. But wait a moment, I'll get Mr. Bai to drive our car over." Huang Yongning pressed his headset and shouted, "Mr. Bai, can you help us drive the car over? Everything here is settled." "Big brother He, what about you guys?" Poplar Fruit looked at He Wenjue and asked. He Wenjue walked over and patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder. He smiled and said, "All right, don't worry about me. I'll help you deal with the aftermath. When the time comes, we'll directly return to the military base. You just have to take care of your own matters." "But you brat. Why did you provoke another little girl?" He Wenjue said with some blame. "What do you want Fang Beibei to think of you?" Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head and said, "No, big brother, what are you thinking? This is only my junior sister. Fang Beibei is my girlfriend." As he spoke, Huang Yongning took out his headset and looked at it strangely. He stuffed it back in and called Mr. Bai a few times. This made Poplar Fruit and the rest look over in confusion. No response. Did he put his headset aside and fall asleep? Huang Yongning smiled and asked, "Little Yang, can you give him a call?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, "My phone is in the car. How about this? I'll take Xueqing outside to get some fresh air and give him a call." "That works too." Huang Yongning nodded and said, "There's no rush. Why don't you just drive over and wake him up? There are 2 cars. You can also drive little Li over. It's too far. We won't be able to get there in 10 minutes. Poplar Fruit walked over and lowered his body. He said to Duan Xueqing, "Come, let's go home. Can you walk? Do you want me to carry you?" "I can walk." Duan Xueqing shook her head. She gritted her teeth and slowly stood up with Poplar Fruit's help. Her legs were still weak. She had been tied up with ropes for too long. Without blood circulation, she felt like she was being pricked by needles. She only felt a little better now. After helping Duan Xueqing to the car outside, Little Li quickly opened the car door for Poplar Fruit so that he could help Duan Xueqing into the back seat. However, there was a sudden loud bang, as if something had exploded. They were all stunned. The sound was too loud. The entire warehouse was buzzing. It even felt as if it had happened right beside them. Poplar Fruit immediately shielded Duan Xueqing, while Little Li quickly covered his head and squatted on the ground. "It seems like it's fine. It's not here." Poplar Fruit reacted faster. He stood up and patted Little Li. Little Li stood up and took out his pistol. He pulled out Poplar Fruit and said in a deep voice, "Be careful, it sounds like an explosion." Poplar Fruit. The people in the warehouse also heard the noise and rushed out. He Wenjue ran the fastest. He thought that something had happened to Poplar Fruit, and that it might have been Li Zichao's backup plan. He shouted in shock and anger as he rushed out. "Big brother, I'm fine." Poplar Fruit waved his hand and shouted, "It's not here." "That's good." Huang Yongning also rushed out, leaving 2 people inside to watch. He frowned and asked, "Where did the explosion happen?" "There's smoke over there." Little Li, who had just looked around, exclaimed. He pointed at the black smoke rising in the distance. Poplar Fruit looked in the direction of the smoke. In the far west, reflecting the afterglow of the setting sun, a wisp of black smoke could be clearly seen rising into the sky. It was the most disharmonious part of this poignant scene. "That place?" Huang Yongning frowned and murmured, "Where we came from. The only road out." Poplar Fruit's judgment was very accurate. He said with certainty, because that was the place where he had just driven in. Wait. Poplar Fruit seemed to have thought of something. Huang Yongning and He Wenjue also thought of something. Only Duan Xueqing was still in a daze. She was not in the best state of mind, and she was also shocked by the explosion. How could she keep up with their thoughts? Pai Din 1? Poplar Fruit swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He and He Wenjue looked at each other. "Oh no." Huang Yongning murmured to himself. His eyebrows were knitted together. "This is troublesome. What? Duan Xueqing began to react. She seemed to have realized something. Her calm eyes widened, and suddenly, they were filled with tears. This was a rare display of panic on her part. Quick! Quick! Poplar Fruit pulled open the driver's seat and got in. He shouted. Get in the car, let's go take a look. Let's go save people. In August, everyone please vote for us. Xiaohan thanks. Chapter 995. After Poplar Fruit and the others moved out, Pai Din crouched alone at the root of a tree with his head between his knees. He looked like a street thug, but no one looked at him, because no one would pass by here. Pai Din could hear the exchange between the SWAT team and the special forces through his earpiece. It was like a live broadcast, and he could hear the ups and downs and thrilling twists and turns from beginning to end. Oh no, they have an expert. There are so many people. I'm going down, but there are people on the second and third floors. We can't alert them. Why didn't Poplar Fruit fight back? Was he beaten up? Can he still stand up? We have to do something. Or else. No, Poplar Fruit is not that weak. Let's wait and see what he's doing. No, he'll be beaten to death. They're drawing their swords. Wow, why is Poplar Fruit so strong? He killed 3 people by himself. Move. We can't wait any longer. I'm going to kill you. Wait, everyone listen to me. They don't have guns. Don't use guns. Meng Sanhua. Forget it, don't kill him. Damn. Who shot him? It's that Li guy. F***ck, he almost killed little Yang. Luckily, Yang saved him and hit him. I'll kill him. Wait, don't hurt him. Let me do it. The series of exchanges gave Pai Din a complete picture of the fight in the warehouse. However, Pai Din raised his head, and his face was full of tears. To be honest, a man crying looked like a weak and dispirited piece of trash. Pai Din hated himself for not being able to protect Duan Xueqing in advance, and for not being able to save her from the abyss of suffering. He could only limp and hide under a tree where the wind didn't even blow. He was so useless. What do you use to love her? Pai Din questioned himself again and again. What people feared the most was falling in love. Pai Din was like that. After the tea house, he started to lose himself in Duan Xueqing's peaceful aura. He forgot his identity and his mission. Then he used his love to hurt this pure and innocent girl who stood alone in this world. Really, Pai Din, you don't deserve to love her. Yanggua's words were still circling around his ears. I advise you not to have too much hope. Xueqing will never forgive you. Who asked you to deceive her? To take advantage of her feelings? Yes, not only did Poplar Fruit understand Duan Xueqing, Pai Din also understood Duan Xueqing very well. He knew that this stubborn girl's heart was like a piece of glass. One side was beautiful, while the other side was evil. If he wanted her to admit that there was beauty in evil, then he had to break this piece of glass. At the same time, her heart would die. The gangster was stiff. Pai Din struggled to get up, held the key, opened the door of the outermost Mazda, and sat inside. Pai Din's hands trembled. He twisted the key a few times before he could light the car. Pai Din listened to the conversation in his earpiece silently. He paid attention to how Duan Xueqing was rescued by Poplar Fruit from thousands of soldiers and horses. Driving was really a big problem for him. Pai Din's left leg was not only a little out of shape, but it was also injured. He couldn't exert any strength at all. Gritting his teeth, Pai Din finally dragged his right leg over and stepped on the clutch. He shifted the car into first gear and slowly started the car. When he drove onto the straight road, Pai Din stepped on the clutch and shifted into neutral, then stepped on the brake. He looked at the road deeply. He couldn't see anything. This is not good. Pai Din started the car again with difficulty. He stopped the car at a crossroad that was perpendicular to the road just now. Pulling the handbrake, Pai Din's hands trembled. He held the phone and did nothing. He just sat there in a daze. Later, he manually pressed the phone, but no one knew what he pressed on the phone, because a teardrop fell on the screen. It was like a broken raindrop, blurring the screen into a mess. Soon, Xiaoli's questioning voice came through the earpiece. Huang Yongning said helplessly, "Okay, let him go. What's the point of keeping him? You can't catch him. In the end, Li Zichao drove away. Xiaoli reported in the earpiece. Let him drive away. That son of a b***tch. Pai Dun heard it clearly. His face became paler and paler. His hands trembled, and he almost couldn't hold the phone anymore. In the end, no one knew what he did. He just took the phone back and put it in his pocket with trembling hands. Holding the steering wheel tightly, Pai Dun forced his hands to stabilize. He took deep breaths, and finally wiped away his tears. He resolutely dragged his right leg and stepped on the clutch. He changed gears, released the handbrake, and released the clutch. The car began to move slowly. In the distance, 2 headlights appeared in the front right. It was that person's car. That's right, Pai Dun couldn't see the car's model. He could only see the 2 headlights from afar. At this moment, his thoughts were clearer than ever. It was like a computer loaded with the latest CPU. The 2 roads and 2 cars formed a clear picture in his mind. This is the time. His swollen eyes suddenly opened. It was as if there was a burst of dazzling light. Pai Dun gritted his teeth, stepped on the accelerator, stepped on the clutch and changed gears. Although only one leg could be used, Pai Dun showed agility that even racers didn't have. 2nd gear. 3rd gear. 4th gear. 5th gear. In less than 7 seconds, Pai Dun suddenly moved the car to 5th gear. He completely let go of the clutch and stepped on the gas pedal to its limit. 60, 70, 80. The needle on the speedometer was rising crazily. 90, 100, 120, 140, 160. It was too fast. No, it was even faster. 170, 180. It was almost off the charts. Pai Dun grabbed the steering wheel and stared into the distance. He didn't care if the brakes would work at such a fast speed. Yes, in his mind, there was no such thing as brakes. In his eyes, there was only the distance. There was only the BMW in front of him. There was only the frightened face that he could see. Bang! There was a loud sound. However, Pai Dun couldn't hear it. He couldn't hear anything. It was as if the world had become very quiet. It was as quiet as the tea room where he used to smile and drink tea with her. It was as if he was flying in the air. The sky was so beautiful. The intoxicating sunset, the slanting afterglow. It was like that time when Duan Xueqing came to his shop as a guest. The 2 of them sat until evening, and then he sent her back. The sunset at that time was also so long and beautiful. I'm so tired. Let me rest for a while, okay? He quietly rested under the tree, quietly lying down. Quietly, a white flower floated to the side of his hand. It seemed to be the most beautiful snow lotus on the ice mountain. In August, everyone, please vote for me. Xiaohan, thanks. Chapter 996. Poplar Fruit and the others arrived by car. Not only Duan Xueqing, but Poplar Fruit was also stunned when he opened the car door. The scene was like a battlefield, and it was horrible to look at. The most shocking thing was the BMW that Li Zichao had driven away. It had been broken into 2 pieces, like a destroyer that had been hit by a missile, broken in half, and sunk. Without even looking, they could guess that the people in the car were no longer whole, because they couldn't find a complete body. The steering wheel had fallen to one side, and a limb was hanging on it. The rest of the body was scattered along with the car seat. Not only that, but the pieces of the BMW's front were burning. The black smoke that Poplar Fruit and the others had seen just now should be the smoke from the burning. Fortunately, because the front of the car was broken, and the fuel tank was cracked, only the gasoline that flowed out was ignited, and it didn't cause a more serious explosion. God. Huang Yongning stood at the door of the car, grabbing the hair on his head, feeling a little anxious. He was pushed away, and Duan Xueqing, who had been hungry for a day and a night and was very weak, squeezed out of the back seat. She stumbled on the ground, and Poplar Fruit rushed over to support her. Looking at the miserable situation on the ground, her tears flowed down, but she didn't make any sound. It was as if her spirit had been separated from her body, and she could no longer connect with it. Over here. Xiaoli, who had walked a little further away, shouted. Poplar Fruit and the others hurried over. During the collision, the Mazda's speed was too fast. Even if it tore the BMW apart, And even if it was destroyed, it still flew more than 30 meters away due to inertia. Dragging a long black tire mark, the front of the Mazda had become a squashed piece of scrap iron, and the body of the car was distorted. "Where is she?" Poplar Fruit asked Xiaoli anxiously. "She's gone. He probably flew out of the front window of the car." Xiaoli shook his head and said as he picked up the airbag that had already turned into scrap. Pai Dinwan didn't wear a safety belt. Yes, he didn't think about his own survival. He crashed into the wall with the courage to face death with equanimity. Could he have jumped away the moment he crashed into the car? Poplar Fruit asked expectantly. It wasn't impossible. Isn't this how it usually goes in the movies? Poplar Fruit was just overthinking. Before Poplar Fruit could give Duan Xueqing hope again, Xiaoli shook his head and said, "Impossible, and there are bloodstains on the glass. It could only be nearby." They split up and searched. Soon Meng Sanhua raised his hand and sighed. He called out softly, "Here." They gathered around, but Poplar Fruit didn't move. He held Duan Xueqing in his arms and felt her struggle. He frowned and whispered, "Don't look, okay?" Duan Xueqing shook her head and threw out a few drops of tears. She looked very stubborn, and even wanted to break free from Poplar Fruit to look for herself. Poplar Fruit was worried about her, and had to help her walk over. When they got closer, they saw a person lying quietly under the tree. Both Poplar Fruit and Duan Xueqing recognized him at a glance. It was as if the air and time had stopped flowing. That person had never been so peaceful. Even the frown that had been frowning for months was now gone, as if he had been released. Even the iceberg-like Duan Xueqing was unable to control herself at this moment. She covered her mouth and began to cry. She seemed to have lost all her strength. If not for Poplar Fruit's strong arms holding her, she would have collapsed to the ground. Poplar Fruit looked over. Meng Sanhua, who was squatting on the ground, withdrew his hand and shook his head at Poplar Fruit. "Let me try." Poplar Fruit called Xiaoli and asked him to help Duan Xueqing. Poplar Fruit squatted down and gently turned Pai Dinwan over. He supported his back with both hands and slowly let him lie on the ground. There was a scar on Pai Dinwan's head. It was probably from the car window. Fortunately, there were no injuries on his face. He looked peaceful. Poplar Fruit used his internal energy and gently pressed on Pai Dinwan's chest with both hands. In other people's eyes, he was performing CPR on Pai Dinwan. In fact, Poplar Fruit wanted to see if he could revive Pai Dinwan through the stimulation of his internal energy. Once, twice. However, even though Poplar Fruit increased the output of his internal energy, Pai Dinwan didn't move at all. He was already dead. No matter how powerful Poplar Fruit was, there was nothing he could do. After all, he wasn't the king of hell. For the first time, Poplar Fruit felt so powerless. He didn't want to give up, but every time he pressed down, it would only consume his internal energy in vain. Seeing that Poplar Fruit's face was a little pale, Hiwenjua took a step forward and pulled Poplar Fruit's arm, pulling him up. Hiwenjua pressed on Poplar Fruit's shoulder, shook it, and woke him up loudly. "Poplar Fruit! He's already dead. Wake up." Poplar Fruit's face was pale, not only because of the consumption of his internal energy, but also because of the fact that Pai Dinwan, who was still alive just a moment ago, was now silent. Life was actually so fragile. Back then, Wu Yu was also like this. She held his hand and was sent into the delivery room by him. A few hours later, she was sent out covered with a white cloth. Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that he was so helpless on the verge of life and death. This was different from the enemy's corpses that Poplar Fruit had seen before. Wu Yu was his daughter's mother, and Pai Dinwan was also an existence that was both a friend and a foe. In fact, after saving Duan Xueqing, Poplar Fruit no longer regarded him as his enemy. "I even hit him before," Poplar Fruit muttered to himself, but Hiwenjua could not hear him clearly. Hiwenjua comforted him and said, "It's okay, it's okay." Poplar Fruit was not that weak, but he felt a little uncomfortable. He pushed Hiwenjua away and forced a smile. He walked in front of Duan Xueqing, who was already crying, and stood in front of her to comfort her. "A dead person can't come back to life. Xueqing, don't be so sad." However, Poplar Fruit's comfort could not even convince himself. Duan Xueqing threw herself into his arms and cried loudly. This was the first time she had vented her emotions so openly since junior high school. Her crying voice was already hoarse, and her tears had already dried up. Huang Yongning and the others stood in front of Pai Dinwan solemnly, and there was a trace of respect in their eyes. They respected Pai Dinwan's feelings and courage. Pai Dinwan did what this group of powerful soldiers and special police officers wanted to do, but did not dare to do. However, a moment of pleasure would leave behind endless troubles. How are we going to explain this? Huang Yongning looked at Huanzhua with a bitter smile. In the distance, the flashing lights of ambulances and police cars were reflected in his eyes. Huanzhua patted the dust on his shoulders, gritted his teeth and snorted. I'll deal with it when it comes. I'm not afraid of him. At the beginning of the month, I beg everyone to vote for me. Although I can't get on the list, I want more readers to be able to read this book. Chapter 997. It was very late at night, but the Duan residence was still brightly lit. After Duan Xueqing was sent home, she fainted from excessive sadness and tears. The Duan family hired a doctor to give her an 4 drip and a nutrient drip to replenish her body's energy. They also asked a few nannies to take turns to take care of her, worried that she would commit suicide after she woke up. The problem now was not the injured or the aftermath of the accident, but how to appease the Li family's anger. Huang Yongning and Huanzhua had already gone to help find Duan Xueqing, but Poplar Fruit had no choice but to stay at the Duan residence to help take care of Duan Xueqing. Poplar Fruit, why don't you rest for a while? Duan Xueqing's elder brother, Duan Yongfeng, walked over. He was a man in his 30s and was now the second person in charge of the Duan family other than Father Duan. However, after such a big incident, he was also a little battered and his hair was a little white. Poplar Fruit was indeed tired now. He was mentally and physically exhausted. Moreover, he had used too much internal energy, so he could not be as active as usual without sleeping or resting. Okay. Poplar Fruit nodded. He touched his body and looked up. I left my phone in the car. I'll go get it first. Poplar Fruit had been wholeheartedly immersed in the series of battles and troubles. He had not taken his phone out of the car. When he took it out to take a look, his phone was almost bursting with missed calls. Most of them were from Fang Beibei, but there were also many calls from Zheng Yujie. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and breathed out tiredly. He muttered to himself, "Oh no, I forgot." When he returned to the bedroom that the Duan family had prepared for him, Poplar Fruit prepared to call his girlfriend. After coming out of the house, he did not call Fang Beibei. Fang Beibei must have been worried and scared the whole day. However, just as he picked up his phone, Zheng Yujie's call came in. What a coincidence. He had just picked up his phone. Zheng Yujie hadn't received the news yet. She was just worried about Poplar Fruit's safety. Hearing her criticism, Poplar Fruit was a little touched. However, when it came to the troublesome matter of Li Zichao being killed, Zheng Yujie also became serious. Although the Li family was in its twilight years, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Who knew how crazy the Li family would be after the death of their eldest son? Zheng Yujie needed to ask her father for help, so she gave Poplar Fruit a few simple instructions and said, "I'll come to you tomorrow." Then she hung up the phone in a hurry. At this time, Poplar Fruit's head was a little heavy. He washed his face with cold water and quickly pressed Fang Beibei's phone. "Uncle." The phone was connected not long after. Poplar Fruit heard Fang Beibei's tired voice. She was a little wronged. Poplar Fruit could understand Fang Beibei's feelings. She hadn't slept yet, so she must have been waiting for his call. She probably hadn't been able to rest well for the whole day. He said apologetically, "Baby, I'm sorry. I forgot to leave my phone in the car." "You didn't answer it for the whole day," Fang Beibei said aggrievedly. "Because something big happened," Poplar Fruit patiently explained to Fang Beibei. "Something big happened?" Fang Beibei was shocked and asked. "Senior sister Duan wasn't rescued." "She was rescued." Poplar Fruit sighed and said, "Xueqing wasn't injured, but she was too sad. Do you still remember that Pai Dinwan?" Fang Beibei obviously remembered. A few days ago, Poplar Fruit even saw him. "He's dead." Poplar Fruit said in a low voice. He was driving and collided with that Lisa Chow. The two of them died together. Ah. Fong Beibei was shocked. She suddenly remembered that she was so focused on venting her grievances to Poplar Fruit that she forgot to care about Poplar Fruit. She hurriedly asked, "Uncle, then are you injured?" She was so scared that her voice was choked with sobs. Poplar Fruit's heart warmed and comforted her. "I'm fine. When they collided, we weren't at the scene. When we were saving Xueqing at the warehouse, Big Brother he and the others also came to Jiangnan to help, so it went very smoothly." Poplar Fruit could only report the good news and not the bad news to Fong Beibei. He didn't dare to tell Fong Beibei about the difficulties and dangers of saving Duan Xueqing. "It's because something so big happened that I was dizzy the whole afternoon and night. I forgot to take my phone out of the car." Poplar Fruit gently comforted her and said, "Baby, don't worry. I'm fine." "Uncle, when are you coming back?" Fong Beibei's emotions calmed down a little and asked. "I might not be able to come back in the next 2 days." Poplar Fruit sighed and said, "Lisa Chow is in some trouble. I can't explain it in a few words. When I come back in the future, I'll tell you in detail." After a pause, Poplar Fruit said, "Besides, after Pai Dinwan died, the impact on Xueqing is still very big. If I stay, I can comfort her." Fong Beibei was silent for a while, then said, "Oh." She felt wronged. Poplar Fruit continued, "These few days, you'll have to work harder at home and help take care of Kiki." "Then what about you? You didn't bring any clothes." Fong Beibei said. "Tomorrow, Zheng Yujie will come over. Help pack some clothes and ask her to bring them to me." Worried that Fong Beibei would think too much, Poplar Fruit pretended to be cheerful and said with a smile, "Don't worry, it's not what you think. She's coming over to help me solve Lisa Chow's problem. Lisa Chow is from a political family. His death is very troublesome. So I have to ask Zheng Yujie to ask her father to explain," Poplar Fruit said. After a while, Fong Beibei said, "Oh." Her voice was much louder than before. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and smiled bitterly. He knew that his girlfriend was in a bad mood again. He sighed and said, "Baby, don't throw a tantrum. You know that I'm very tired now." "Who's throwing a tantrum with you?" Fong Beibei was aggrieved and angry. She sniffed and said, "You didn't answer the phone all day. Do you know how worried I was about you? You're very tired. Do you know that I haven't slept since you left in the middle of the night? You said that I was throwing a tantrum." Fong Beibei cried aggrievedly. Poplar Fruit's heart suddenly softened. He stood up with his mobile phone and comforted his girlfriend. He kept apologizing and saying that he was wrong. Finally, Poplar Fruit spent more than an hour to appease Fong Beibei's temper. Poplar Fruit knew that Fong Beibei was still a little unhappy in her heart. If he wanted to eliminate the grudge with Fong Beibei, he had to go home and slowly get used to it. She was angry because of love. She promised that she wouldn't be angry because of love. Fong Beibei gradually realized that Poplar Fruit might be really tired today. Usually, she didn't feel that his reaction would be as slow as today. Fong Beibei took a step back with a little grievance. The two said goodnight to each other and reluctantly hung up the phone. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 998. After hanging up the phone, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but fall into a deep sleep. He didn't even take a shower as he needed sleep to restore his energy. However, Fong Beibei couldn't sleep. She didn't leave the sofa in the living room. Previously, she was afraid that the phone call would disturb Kiki, so she came down. But now, she curled up on the sofa in a daze. Her eyes were dull, and there was only fatigue and confusion left. Fong Beibei completely understood Poplar Fruit's way of dealing with things. She had always had great confidence in Poplar Fruit. She believed that he wasn't a playboy, and that he would be unswerving for his family and her. However, the experience of her first love in the past made her completely lose her sense of security. This was something that she didn't feel before. Fong Beibei was afraid of losing him. Subconsciously, she kept thinking that Poplar Fruit would abandon her. Even though she had confidence in Poplar Fruit, she couldn't help but keep scaring herself subconsciously. Moreover, Poplar Fruit didn't do it perfectly. Although he was indeed a perfect boyfriend, husband, and Kiki's father at home. He had too many confidants outside. Not to mention others, just Zheng Yujie and Duan Xueqing. Fang Beibei felt a deep threat. Duan Xueqing was fine. After all, Poplar Fruit had clearly rejected her, and she had decided to give up. But what about Zheng Yujie? Poplar Fruit didn't hide it from her. Fang Beibei knew that Zheng Yujie had pursued Poplar Fruit, and Poplar Fruit had also rejected her. However, Zheng Yujie still pursued her. Compared to Zheng Yujie, Fang Beibei had no chance of winning. In terms of family background and social status, Zheng Yujie wasn't something that Fang Beibei could hope for. And in terms of appearance? Although in Poplar Fruit's eyes, Fang Beibei was prettier than Zheng Yujie, Poplar Fruit said so himself. In a woman's eyes, beauty didn't only refer to bare face, but also to dressing up and even makeup. In these aspects, Fang Beibei had a deep sense of inferiority when standing in front of Zheng Yujie. Just like an ugly duckling seeing a white swan, Fang Beibei would always feel ashamed of her fashion and maturity. Of course, Poplar Fruit had told her before, "No, I like your pure and innocent look." However, Fang Beibei didn't take it to heart. She felt that men were carnivores, and they would definitely be driven by their natural instincts to like women with good figures. For Poplar Fruit's career, Fang Beibei had made a lot of sacrifices. For example, she didn't act like the girls in TV dramas, who insisted that Poplar Fruit stay away from Zheng Yujie, a seductive woman. Instead, she chose to believe in Poplar Fruit and swallow her anger. However, today, she had a quarrel with Poplar Fruit. It was the first time that they had a quarrel since they started dating. No, it should be said that it was the first time that Poplar Fruit didn't go along with her and comfort her. Instead, he criticized her. This gave Fang Beibei an illusion. She felt that Poplar Fruit had changed and he didn't love her anymore. Such chaotic thoughts accompanied Fang Beibei throughout the long night. She didn't rest until she couldn't stand it anymore and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Fang Beibei was awakened by a dream. She dreamed that Poplar Fruit really left her. Her head hurt, and the things in the dream were blurred. She only remembered that Poplar Fruit carried Kiki and left without looking back. In the direction that Poplar Fruit left, Zheng Yujie was smiling at her, and she was smiling very proudly. Although it was a dream, it made Fang Beibei, who couldn't sleep for a while, feel even more tired. She touched the pillow, but it was already soaked with tears. She didn't know when she fell into a deep sleep, but she also didn't know when she was woken up by Kiki and Goldie. Kiki didn't know when she woke up, and then she climbed down from upstairs and ran around the living room with Goldie, who woke up early. Finally, she pulled Fang Beibei's jade hand that was sleeping on the sofa. Goldie also curiously licked Fang Beibei and woke her up. Beibei jiejie Beibei jiejie. Kiki. Fang Beibei supported half of her body to get up. She rubbed her red eyes, and her head was heavy and dizzy. Beibei jiejie, get up. Kiki pulled Fang Beibei's hand and said, "Kiki wants to wash her face." Without any hesitation, Fang Beibei struggled to get up, patted Kiki's little head, and went to the bedroom on the second floor to get Kiki's towel and toothbrush. Kiki immediately followed into the bathroom. "Brush your teeth first." Fang Beibei's voice was a bit hoarse. She helped Kiki apply toothpaste, and then handed it to her. "Brush, brush, 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 brush." Kiki stood on the chair, looked at herself in the mirror, and happily shook her little butt. "Don't move when you brush your teeth." Today, Fang Beibei really didn't have the mood to play with Kiki. She gently pulled Kiki's rabbit hair band and lifted up her hair to prevent the toothpaste foam from getting on her hair. Kiki pressed the switch of the electric toothbrush and put it into her mouth. In the past, Poplar Fruit brushed Kiki's teeth with an ordinary toothbrush. When he taught her how to brush her teeth herself, she didn't want to learn. Later, it was Fang Beibei who decided to give Kiki a more cute cartoon electric toothbrush. Not only did the toothbrush look good, but the automatic toothbrush also made Kiki very happy. After brushing her teeth, Fang Beibei used a warm wet towel to wipe Kiki's face very carefully. However, Kiki also noticed that Fang Beibei's eyes were swollen and bloodshot. "Sister Beibei, why do you have big white rabbit eyes?" Kiki's two cold little hands rubbed Fang Beibei's eyes gently, and she asked curiously, "Did you cry like Kiki?" Fang Beibei shook her head, squeezed out a smile, and said gently, "No, it's just that Sister Beibei didn't sleep well yesterday. Kiki is so sensible, you know how to care about Sister Beibei." Kiki's face smiled, twisted a little, and said shyly, "Papa also said that Kiki has grown up." Because of Kiki, Fang Beibei's mood was much better. She helped Kiki take off the rabbit hair band, and then used a comb to smooth out Kiki's messy hair after waking up in the morning, and then tied it into a goat horn braid. "Am I pretty?" Fang Beibei pressed Kiki's shoulder, and asked her to look in the mirror. "Yes." Kiki turned around on the chair, and said with satisfaction. She pulled Fang Beibei's arm, looked up and urged, "Sister Beibei, also wash your face. Sister Beibei also has to be beautiful. Why are you all up so early?" Chun Anlin rubbed her eyes and walked out of the guest room on the first floor. She was woken up by their laughter. Fang Beibei smiled and said, "Good morning, sister-in-law. I'm sorry to wake you up." It's okay. Chun Anlin waved her hand and said, "Coincidentally, I'm also about to get up and exercise. Kiki, do you want to join me?" Okay. Kiki will teach you Benben Fist, okay?" Kiki climbed down from the chair, and without anyone's help, she ran out of the bathroom while giggling. Fang Beibei smiled and watched her jump out. Although she was still very tired, her mood was indeed a lot better. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 999. On the first floor, Chun Anlin was playing with Kiki. Fang Beibei went upstairs to tidy up a little, then went back to bed to sleep. This time, she slept more comfortably and soon fell asleep, until Chun Anlin woke her up. "Beibei, Brother Xiong downstairs said that a woman is coming up. Her name is Zheng Yujie," Chun Anlin said to Fang Beibei. Fang Beibei paused for a while, as if she was too sleepy to react. She said, "Let her come up." Fang Beibei went to the bathroom to wash her face, then combed her messy hair to make herself look more energetic. Then, she carried a small suitcase that she had prepared and went downstairs. Poplar Fruit's new home. The decoration is pretty good. It's my first time here. Zheng Yujie had already come in. She took off her sunglasses and looked around elegantly. "Auntie, Kiki will take you to see Kiki's room." Kiki and Zheng Yujie were also very friendly, and wanted to take Zheng Yujie upstairs. Hearing their conversation, Fang Beibei, who was going downstairs, changed her expression slightly. She walked over and looked at Zheng Yujie, who was still gorgeously dressed, and her expression was a little ugly. Zheng Yujie was dressed very simply today. She wore a lotus purple chiffon shirt that was sleeveless like a tank top, revealing her beautiful arms. The slim lines and loose double hem showed her good figure and elegant posture. The chiffon blouse paired with white slim-fit trousers vividly displayed the advantage of her long legs. She looked like an elegant white-collar beauty, but also like a fashionable city beauty. Not only did Fang Beibei have mixed feelings, but Chun Anlin, who had nothing to do with her, also felt a lot of pressure. He felt that this woman's aura was too strong, and the light of fashion was too aggressive. Zheng Yujie's fashion could always be combined perfectly with her. It was something that others could neither envy nor learn. Fang Beibei's heart was alarmed. She felt wronged and thought, "She's really not giving up. She's going to see my uncle, but she still has to dress up so beautifully." Fang Beibei misunderstood Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie did not dress up deliberately. Yesterday, she was busy for a long time because of Poplar Fruit. She even went to see Zheng Mingxing early in the morning. When she came back and tidied up, Zheng Yujie did not have time to put on makeup. She only put on some foundation to cover the dark circles under her eyes. As for the clothes, she had just bought them recently. She casually picked a matching set of clothes to wear. Zheng Yujie could only say, "I can't help it. I'm beautiful, so I look good in whatever I wear." In fact, Fang Beibei did not know that when Zheng Yujie saw her, she was also muttering in her heart, "I really don't understand why Poplar Fruit is so loyal to her. She's just a little younger and has better skin." Zheng Yujie still subconsciously felt that Fang Beibei was more beautiful than her. It was just that women were not willing to admit it. When the two met, the atmosphere between them became tense before they spoke. "Beibei, did you just get up?" Zheng Yujie smiled and said, I won't stay here with you. Poplar Fruit is still waiting for me in Jiangnan. He said yesterday that he was fine. Feng Beibei was a little depressed. She bit her lower lip and said, "It's not a big deal. I have to help him deal with the aftermath. This guy is really worrisome. Maybe it was because Poplar Fruit was not here today, or maybe it was because of other reasons." Zheng Yujie did not know why, but today, she spoke as if she was deliberately showing off. Feng Beibei was angry. She felt very uncomfortable in her heart. She did not know how to fight back. Kiki finally found an opportunity to interrupt. She tilted her head, pulled Zheng Yujie's finger, and asked curiously, "Papa? Where did Kiki's papa go? He didn't even call Kiki." "Your father is still very busy," Zheng Yujie said with a smile. "Auntie is going to visit him today. Kiki also wants to go." Kiki shouted happily. Feng Beibei's eyes lit up. She stepped forward, hugged Kiki in her arms and asked, "Yes, I'll go with Kiki, okay?" How could Zheng Yujie be willing? It was rare for her to have the opportunity to be with Poplar Fruit. How could she be willing to let Feng Beibei get in the way? Forget it. It's only a day or two. Don't go and cause trouble for him," Zheng Yujie said. "The situation there is very complicated. How can he have time to take care of you?" Hearing this, Feng Beibei only felt a gust of anger rising in her heart. She raised her head and said unconvinced, "What do you mean by go and cause trouble for him? We don't need him to take care of us. Moreover, I can take care of him." "Come on." Zheng Yujie shook her head and said, "He's not a child. Does he need you to take care of him? Use your brain and think about it. If you go, can you help? If you go, what's the use of you?" Zheng Yujie had always had a temper. Her character was extremely shrewish. In addition to her family background, she usually did not care about other people's feelings when she spoke. In the past, she had bullied a lot of rich playboys in Beijing, so she treated Poplar Fruit better. Now that Poplar Fruit was not around, she would not be polite to Feng Beibei. Feng Beibei choked. She asked angrily, "How am I useless?" Zheng Yujie did not want to appear bad, but her temper really rose today. In addition to the grievances accumulated in the past and the resentment towards Feng Beibei, she finally exploded. "What's the use of you? If you go to Jiangnan, can you help him get out of this quagmire?" Zheng Yujie crossed her arms in front of her chest and said coldly, "Do you think we're there to play? I'm not afraid to tell you that Li Zichao's situation arose because of me, but I'm not afraid of the Li family. My father is Zheng Mingsheng, the provincial party secretary of Guangdong province. If we really want to arm wrestle, our Zheng family is not afraid of the Li family." Zheng Yujie rarely mentioned her father to others, but today she was really confused and did not choose her words carefully. Under Zheng Yujie's imposing manner, Feng Beibei was suppressed. She pursed her lips, and her eyes were shining. "What about me? You only know how to cry. Other than crying, what else can you do?" Zheng Yujie was angry and continued, "I really don't understand why Poplar Fruit chose you. You look like a bean sprout, and you don't know anything. Yanghua has achieved so much success. How much credit do you have for that? Can you be a translator for Poplar Fruit? Can you help him sell the translated books all over the world?" Zheng Yujie's shrewish character could not stop at all. He wrote papers and did research projects. Those are also his own contributions. He met Ardil, and then went to Bali. He met Mo Yen, and then went to Sweden. If I hadn't dragged him out, he wouldn't have had those opportunities. Zheng Yujie said, "I don't think it's all my contributions. But what did you do in all this? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk." Chapter 1000. After a moment of silence, Feng Beibei mustered up her courage and said, "I helped him with long-distance education." Throughout the entire process, she had been suppressed and was about to cry from Zheng Yujie's words. "Come on. How did you help him with long-distance education? He's just setting up the framework and teaching you step by step." Zheng Yujie had been following Poplar Fruit's Weibo, so she knew some things about Poplar Fruit and Feng Beibei. "Besides, I was the one who helped him with long-distance education." Zheng Yujie was unhappy and said angrily, "You know Kai Simin, right? I found him in Beijing and brought him to Xiong village to find poplar fruit. At that time, I didn't even know where you were." Zheng Yujie had been holding this anger in her heart for a long time. She didn't like to appear so mean, but in terms of grievance, she felt that she was 100 times more wrong than Fang Beibei. She had helped poplar fruit so much without any complaints, but poplar fruit still chose another girl. She had always been unconvinced and had always wanted to ask this question. "How am I worse than you?" When she asked this question to Fang Beibei, Zheng Yujie's eyes turned red. The two of them quarreled so fiercely that Kiki started crying. Kiki went forward and pulled Zheng Yujie with one hand and Fang Beibei with the other. She pouted and sobbed. "Don't fight, Kiki doesn't want you to fight." Chen Anlin heard the commotion and rushed out. He frowned and said, "Stop quarreling, what are you arguing about? Can't you see that the children are crying?" At this time, Fang Beibei was no longer in the mood to quarrel. She covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Zheng Yujie's last sentence had completely destroyed the thick defense she had built up in her heart. Especially when Zheng Yujie accidentally mentioned a past that she didn't know about. At that time, poplar fruit was only pursuing her, and they had not officially been together. However, Zheng Yujie had accompanied him in that harsh mountain environment. Fang Beibei felt that this matter was like a huge shadow hanging over her head, making her unable to breathe. What else happened when they were on the mountain? What else did they do behind his back? Fang Beibei was on the verge of a mental breakdown. She had been hurt in the past and was too sensitive. She felt like she was drowning in a world of lies. Without any other thoughts, Fang Beibei sat on the sofa in a trance for the whole day. She didn't know when Zheng Yujie left and how she left. She did not know how Chen Anlin managed to pacify Kiki. How did he roll up his sleeves and make breakfast, lunch, and even dinner for everyone when she was feeling listless? Fang Beibei only remembered one thing. Chen Anlin was very unhappy with Zheng Yujie. Later, when he sat down to comfort her, he asked her, "Beibei, what are you arguing about? Do you want me to talk to Brother Yang?" Chen Anlin, who was also a shrewish person, was angry at Zheng Yujie for showing off her abilities. He really wanted to complain to poplar fruit. No. Fang Beibei's dull eyes finally moved a little. She held Chen Anlin's hand and shook her head with red eyes. She looked a little sad, but her tone was very firm. She had not thought about how to tell poplar fruit. She had not recovered from the impact of Zheng Yujie's words. When she finally woke up at night and took a shower, she was finally able to think calmly. However, she was trapped in her own thoughts. Am I really that useless? Fang Beibei questioned herself again and again. However, Fang Beibei's answer made her feel depressed. Just like what Zheng Yujie said, her help to poplar fruit was really minimal. She couldn't help with her work, and she still needed poplar fruit's tuition for her English. How could she help? Moreover, whenever poplar fruit excitedly talked to her about his achievements in translating books, Fang Beibei could only calculate how much money poplar fruit had earned from selling so many books. Poplar fruit would smile and pinch her nose, saying that he actually didn't care about the data. She didn't need to worry about poplar fruit at school. She didn't really listen to poplar fruit's classes. Firstly, she didn't understand. Secondly, she had her own homework to study. As for Fang Beibei, she always thought that it was a remote teaching for their small business. Now, she learned from Zheng Yujie that long before she knew about it, Zheng Yujie had already been involved. It was a bit like buying a delicious pie, only to know that your opponent had already taken a bite of it when it was just out of the oven. This feeling was so uncomfortable that it made him feel very aggrieved. Kai Simin, in addition to poplar fruit's relative, Fat Dragon, poplar fruit's most trusted technical consultant, was actually Zheng Yujie's person. What made Fang Beibei even more unbearable was that poplar fruit didn't tell her about Zheng Yujie's situation in Xiong village. Although poplar fruit didn't need to tell her everything, this was Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie was different from others. Fang Beibei's imagination ran wild, and she actually felt an illusion of betrayal. I must be wrong. Uncle isn't such a person. Fang Beibei shook her head and shook the illusion out of her head. However, Zheng Yujie's questioning of "what's the use of you?" was still pestering her, making her feel a little suffocated. At night, poplar fruit called. He didn't know what happened to Fong Beibei, as he had been running around outside for the whole day. He went to the police station to record a statement, explain the situation, and hurried back to comfort Duan Xueqing, who wanted to die. Only now did he have time to call. Hearing Fong Beibei's lack of interest in talking on the phone, Poplar Fruit thought that she was still brooding over last night's quarrel. In order to make Fong Beibei happy, Poplar Fruit didn't tell her about today's unpleasant events, nor did he mention Zheng Yujie. Instead, he raised his spirits and told her a joke. However, Fong Beibei still responded with a simple tone, which made Poplar Fruit feel like he had punched the air. In the end, the two of them parted on bad terms. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to hope that he would make amends when he got home. How could Fong Beibei not feel the love and care that Poplar Fruit had for Fong Beibei? However, she also felt deeply uneasy about it. She was always protected by Poplar Fruit's wings. What if he left without looking back one day? She wasn't my daughter, nor was she Kiki, who could enjoy Poplar Fruit's love without thinking about returning it. What reason do you have for him to leave Zheng Yujie? Fong Beibei asked herself. It seemed that Zheng Yujie, the helper and benefactor of his career, was much more important than her. Was she really too useless? Too weak, too worthless to exist? It was as if he could just find anyone to replace him. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1001. Poplar Fruit only returned on the third day. At this time, Duan Xueqing's emotions were much calmer. At the very least, she would not try to kill herself. With the Duan family following her closely, there was no point in Poplar Fruit staying there. Li Zichao's death had indeed aroused the anger of the Li family. For a moment, Jiangnan was in turmoil, and Poplar Fruit and the others were almost swallowed up. Zheng Mingxing played a great role in the middle. He family in Guangdong province was strong, so no one dared to stop them if they wanted to protect Poplar Fruit. At this time, the head of the Li family, Li Zichao's father, was already standing at the heart of the storm. Who knew how many eyes in the capital were staring at him? The high-ranking official in Jiangnan originally wanted to seek justice for Li Zichao. At this time, facing the decline of the Li family and the strong protection of the Zheng family and He family, he could only let go. Huang Yongning and the two special police officers who helped him became scapegoats. There was nothing they could do. Who asked them to be special police officers under Jiangnan? If they wanted to punish them, they would have to make the mistake of leaving their post without permission. Outsiders could not do anything. After being demoted, Huang Yongning later applied for a transfer to leave Jiangnan and go to Guangdong province. He family supported him there, so it was more suitable for his development than Jiangnan. As for the other two special police officers, one of them stayed in Jiangnan. Shaoli, whose ancestral home was in Guangdong province, retired from the army and went to Guangdong province. He found Poplar Fruit according to the phone number that Poplar Fruit left him. Later, he joined the remote teaching team and led the construction team to rush between the mountains to protect the safety of the workers. Zheng Yujie returned to Guangdong province very early. She only stayed in Jiangnan for a day. Because of work, she hurried back. Big brother he stayed in Jiangnan. In the end, he took Poplar Fruit's car back. He was worried that Poplar Fruit would be taken revenge by others if he stayed in Jiangnan alone. After bidding farewell to Big Brother Poplar Fruit hurried home. Not only did he miss his daughter, but he could also feel that Fong Beibei's attitude had changed when he called home these days. She had become a little cold. It wasn't that cold, but Fong Beibei always sounded a little preoccupied and dispirited when she talked to him on the phone. But compared to her previous enthusiasm, she was indeed a lot colder now. Bao Bao Kiki, I'm back. Poplar Fruit opened the door and called out with a smile. He smelled the rich aroma of food in the house. Obviously, Fong Beibei had forgotten to close the kitchen door. Goldie had already run over and had been harassing him to take off his shoes. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to press its head and push it to the ground. After the matter was settled, Chen Anlin and Xiongda had already gone home. So only Fong Beibei and Kiki were left at home. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Kiki turned her head and looked. She ran over happily and shouted, "Papa!" Poplar Fruit smiled and picked up his daughter. He carried the luggage in, closed the door and said, "Kiki, did you miss me?" He stretched out his face. Kiki immediately understood and kissed her father's face. She giggled and said, "Of course I did." At this time, Fong Beibei also came out wearing an apron. She glanced at Poplar Fruit and was very happy, but it was quickly covered by sadness. She nodded to Poplar Fruit and said, "The food will be ready soon." Then she went back to the kitchen. Poplar Fruit suddenly frowned, and his good mood disappeared without a trace. Sister Beibei is not happy. Kiki pulled her father's ear and whispered to him, "She often sits alone and thinks about life. She's so pitiful." Poplar Fruit was surprised. He smiled, grabbed Kiki's hair and rubbed it and asked, "Think about life, who taught you this word?" "Sister Shanshan taught me." Kiki smiled and twisted her little head, looking very proud. Kiki must have inadvertently learned it when Lin Xingshan usually chatted with Fong Beibei. Poplar Fruit kissed the little fellow and smiled. "You play with Goldie first. Daddy is going to help Sister Beibei cook." "Good girl." Poplar Fruit put Kiki down, patted her little butt, and turned to walk into the kitchen. Entering the kitchen, Fong Beibei was shoveling the stir-fried vegetables into a plate. Poplar Fruit walked up and gently hugged her waist from behind. Fong Beibei suddenly froze. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit reached out and held the porcelain plate for her. Otherwise, the whole plate of vegetables would have fallen into the sink. Poplar Fruit lowered his head and moved closer to Fong Beibei's ear. He kissed her slightly thin cheek gently and asked softly, "Baby, are you still angry with me?" Fong Beibei shook her head. However, Poplar Fruit felt a drop of rain splash onto the back of his hand. But how could there be a drop of rain in the house? Turning Fong Beibei's body, Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei's big drops of tears. "Why are you crying?" Poplar Fruit held Fong Beibei's face and helped her wipe it. He frowned and asked, "Haven't I already gone home? What's there to be upset about? We can slowly talk about it. Why are you crying?" But Fong Beibei turned her head and looked to the side. The more gentle Poplar Fruit was, the more upset Fong Beibei felt. But when she turned her head, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt a little stifled. He didn't do anything wrong. Why did Fong Beibei look at him like this when he came back? This kind of mood continued until the dining table. Although Fong Beibei forced a smile and wanted to appear happier in front of Kiki, it was barely satisfactory. Poplar Fruit was the same. He didn't want his daughter to see the scene of adults quarreling. When it was time to wash the dishes, Poplar Fruit finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He pulled Fong Beibei into the kitchen and asked seriously, "Baby, why are you angry with me? Tell me, and we can solve it together. Why aren't you willing to tell me?" Fong Beibei turned her head away and wiped away her tears. Then she turned her head back and raised her head. Some of her hair stuck to the side of her lips, but she didn't care at all. She stubbornly looked at Poplar Fruit and said, "Last summer, Zheng Yujia, was she with you in Xiong village?" "How did you know?" Poplar Fruit's eyes showed surprise. He didn't know how Fong Beibei knew about this. The reason why he hid this from Fong Beibei was because he was afraid that she would think too much and be jealous. Fong Beibei thought that Poplar Fruit's surprise was panic. She sniffled, but her tears flowed even harder. She choked and said, "Don't worry about how I know. Why did you hide it from me? Tell me, was there something else that you didn't tell me at that time?" "I didn't tell you because I was afraid that you would think too much." Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and pressed Fong Beibei's shoulder. He said, "It's true. Nothing happened between me and her." "You're still lying to me. You were on the mountain and lived together." Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit, but her eyes were already blurred. "You can't say that," Poplar Fruit said in surprise. "After she came because her room was shabby, she ran to my place to sleep. But I left Kiki behind and ran to her place to sleep. This is the absolute truth. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 1002. "Baby, let me tell you." Poplar Fruit held Fong Beibei's hand and said with a serious and solemn expression, "In the past, Zheng Yujia did like me. She does now." Fong Beibei shook off Poplar Fruit's hand and cried loudly. Yes, she does now. Poplar Fruit stepped forward, hugged Fong Beibei tightly, and held her in his arms and said with a wry smile, "But you don't have to care about how others do it. You should know my attitude." She said she liked me, but I never accepted it. Poplar Fruit kissed Fong Beibei's forehead, and said with a smile, "Right? In my heart, you're the only one I love, and the others are just friends." "Then why didn't you tell me?" Fong Beibei asked in a muffled voice. "If I told you, wouldn't you think too much?" Poplar Fruit repeated the answer that he had said countless times. "Really? If I liked her, I would have left with her long ago. Why would I stay by your side? Right? She's rich and..." Poplar Fruit just wanted to make a joke to show the importance of Fong Beibei in his heart. But he didn't expect that this sentence would completely ignite the powder keg. Before he finished, Fong Beibei suddenly pushed him away, and looked at Poplar Fruit in disbelief. She took 2 steps back, as if Poplar Fruit was something terrible. "So in your heart, I'm also completely useless." Fong Beibei took a deep breath, but her tears still rolled down crazily. She said with a sobbing tone, "I'm poor, not beautiful, and don't have a good father, so I can't help you. Since I'm so useless, why do you still like me?" Poplar Fruit was also afraid at this time. He quickly took 2 steps forward and said, "Baby, I didn't mean that." But Fong Beibei had already rushed out of the door. Poplar Fruit was stunned, and then quickly chased after her. The two of them were like a gust of wind, blowing past Kiki's back. Kiki, who was holding a few Barbie dolls and other dolls in the living room, turned around in confusion, but she only saw Poplar Fruit's figure running upstairs. "Goldie, what did you see?" Kiki stretched out her small hand, patted Goldie's head, and asked. Goldie lay on the side, squinting its eyes. From the beginning to the end, it was lazily lying its head. Only when Kiki patted it, it wagged its tail comfortably, its wet nose. "Aya, Goldie is too lazy." Kiki pouted her small mouth and said, "Next time, Kiki, let Papa not buy you snacks to eat." Poplar Fruit chased to the door, gently knocked on Fong Beibei's bedroom door, and said with a wry smile, "Baby, listen to my explanation. I didn't mean that." "I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen." Fong Beibei hysterically shouted from inside. Poplar Fruit tried to turn the door. It was not locked, but Fong Beibei was leaning on the door. Poplar Fruit did not dare to use force to push, and could only say, "Baby, move aside. I'll go in and talk to you slowly." "I don't want to listen. I don't want to see you." Fong Beibei cried, crying very sadly. Poplar Fruit comforted for a long time, but it did not have any effect, and his heart gradually became irritated. He rushed back from Jiangnan today, and was originally tired, but when he returned to Yangcheng, he rushed back home. Didn't he want to see Fong Beibei and Kiki? But when he returned home, he met with Fong Beibei's cold face, and also endlessly throwing tantrums. No matter how good Poplar Fruit's personality was, it was somewhat unbearable now. He kicked up, and when he landed, his slippers made a paw sound on the ground, and instantly quieted down. Poplar Fruit suppressed the irritation in his heart, sighed and said, "Think about it carefully. I'll go and give Kiki a bath first." Walking downstairs, Poplar Fruit clapped, squeezed out a smile, and smiled at Kiki. "Kiki, come, Daddy will give you a bath." "Okay. Kiki wants to take a bath." Kiki quickly jumped up and said in a clear voice, "But, wait for Kiki first. Kiki wants to send the Barbie doll back, otherwise, Goldie will bully her." Snore, snore. Goldie sat on its stomach, shook its head, and snorted. Who knows if it was protesting Kiki's slander? Fortunately, Chi-Chi, this innocent and unaffected little fellow, was messing around by her side. Yangguo's mood improved a lot. After giving Kiki a bath, he carried Kiki, and let Kiki sit on the sofa in the living room with a towel wrapped around her, while he went up to get clothes for Kiki. When he came to the door again, the irritation in Poplar Fruit's heart had disappeared, and he returned to his usual gentle voice, knocked on the door and said, "Baby, open the door. I want to get clothes for Kiki." The bedroom door creaked open, but the light was not turned on. After Poplar Fruit went in and turned on the light, Fong Beibei stood there with her head down, her eyes red and swollen. Yangguo wasn't in a hurry to get his clothes. He walked to Fong Beibei's side and lovingly lifted her messy bangs. He gently helped her wipe her tears and asked, "It's done. Don't be angry anymore. I have already apologized. Haven't you thought it through?" Fong Beibei turned her head and did not look at him. Poplar Fruit frowned, but now was not the time to persuade her. He took the clothes downstairs and put them on Kiki, who had thrown off her towel and was jumping on the sofa naked, before he went to Fong Beibei to continue the confrontation. The two of them sat at the foot of the bed, and after a while, Poplar Fruit was defeated. He raised his hands and said with a bitter smile, "Okay, tell me, what do you want? I'll listen to you." Fong Beibei stared blankly to the side for a while, and then faintly threw out a sentence, "Let's break up." Poplar Fruit was stunned and could not believe his ears. He asked, "What did you say?" "Let's break up." Fong Beibei bit her lower lip, held back her tears and said. Poplar Fruit stood up, looked at Fong Beibei in disbelief and asked, "Are you crazy?" "I'm serious." Fong Beibei raised her head, looked at Poplar Fruit mournfully, and said with tears in her eyes, "Just now, Poplar Fruit went to give Kiki a bath, and this thought had been lingering in her heart. Or it could be said that this thought had already sprouted when Poplar Fruit was still in Jiangnan. The unequal status of the two of them, and Zheng Yujia's questioning, had always pressured her to the point that she could not breathe. Until just now, she had blurted out this sentence, and although she immediately regretted it, in the face of Poplar Fruit's questioning, the self-esteem in her heart emerged, and she did not avoid looking at Poplar Fruit. "You're crazy." Poplar Fruit's eyes were burning with anger. Really, this was the first time he looked at Fong Beibei so angrily. It had never happened before. Fong Beibei was frightened. She took 2 steps back and curled up by the wall, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1003. Seeing that Fong Beibei was frightened by him, Poplar Fruit's heart softened. He stepped forward to support her side and said, "Baby, stop it. If you continue, I'll really be angry." "I'm not." Fong Beibei waved her arms and slapped Poplar Fruit's hand away. Poplar Fruit stiffened, and his hand stopped in the air. Fong Beibei had lost control of her emotions at this moment. She cried and shouted, "I don't want you to pity me. I'm useless. I shouldn't have monopolized you. Let's break up. Zheng Yujie is more suitable for you than me." In the end, she still screamed out those words. She screamed so hysterically that Yangguo's heart was about to break. In this life, Poplar Fruit would never forget the painful memory of that rainy night when Lu Yunran shouted the word "break up" and then rushed into the pouring rain. He could never catch up with her, and she would never come back. Poplar Fruit thought that every minute and every second with Fong Beibei was happiness, and he would never hear the word "break up." Now he was very sad, and the pain was as painful as that rainy night. Looking at Fong Beibei's eyes, Poplar Fruit's eyes showed obvious disappointment. Poplar Fruit looked at her deeply, turned around, slammed the door, and left. When the door was closed, Fong Beibei also knelt down with tears on her face. When they went downstairs, Kiki opened her mouth and looked at her father, who was exuding cold air. She had just heard the loud bang of the door closing, and she called out in fear, "Papa!" Poplar Fruit squatted down and kissed his daughter's forehead gently. He forced a smile and said, "Kiki, Dad has to go out for a while. He may come back late, or he may not come back at all. So Kiki, you have to sleep well, okay?" "But Kiki wants Papa to tell me a story." Kiki pouted and said unhappily, "Dad has something to do today. Tell me tomorrow." Poplar Fruit persuaded, "Dad promises to tell you a story tomorrow." Kiki thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay." "Kiki is so good." Poplar Fruit kissed his daughter's face, then picked up the key and went out. He had not changed his clothes since he came home, but his mood had become very bad. When they went downstairs and got into the car, Poplar Fruit called Song Jiwen and said, "Mosquito, come out and drink with me." Song Jiwen did not know what was going on, so he quickly ran out. When he arrived at the barbecue stall that Poplar Fruit had mentioned, he only saw the table that Poplar Fruit had made. There were a few plates of grilled squid, roasted chicken legs, and other barbecue dishes on it, as well as 2 plates of salted and pepper peanuts. This was not the point. The point was that Poplar Fruit had 2 bottles of soda open in front of him, but the seat opposite him had 5 or 6 bottles of beer open. "Sit." Poplar Fruit pointed. Song Jiwen did not know whether to laugh or cry as he sat down and asked, "You asked me to come out and drink with you, but in the end I drink with you, right?" "You know, I quit drinking." Poplar Fruit picked up a peanut and threw it directly into his mouth. Compared to the anger and discomfort he had felt when he went out, Poplar Fruit was now much calmer. "Okay." Song Jiwen sat down, took a big gulp of cold beer and said comfortably, "Tell me what's the matter? Why did you call me out?" Poplar Fruit did not answer directly, but said with some melancholy, "It's been a long time since the two of us came out to drink like this in the middle of the night, right?" "Isn't that right?" Song Jiwen took another big gulp of beer, and then said while chewing on the grilled squid, "After having Kiki, you completely became a house husband. Then, after having Fong Beibei, you didn't go out at all." Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, "Mosquito, tell me, am I a very fickle person?" Song Jiwen looked at him strangely and asked, "What's wrong? Did you encounter a setback in your relationship?" Poplar Fruit did not hide it, and told Song Jiwen the reason why he was angry today. He asked with a bitter smile, "Mosquito, I have never been half-hearted. Why has Bebe never believed me? Do I really look that fickle and insecure?" "Yes." Song Jiwen nodded and said. Poplar Fruit was surprised. He looked at Song Jiwen's expression, and it did not seem like he was joking. He frowned and asked, "Why do you say that?" "You are too good to women." Song Jiwen pointed the skewer at Poplar Fruit, and said while drinking, "In the past, you were always gentle and considerate to Xueqing, and then to Zheng Yujie, and even when you just met in Lan. What's wrong with being a little better? They are all my friends. I treat men and women alike." Poplar Fruit said unhappily, "Big brother, men and women are different." Song Jiwen rolled his eyes and said, "If you are so gentle to other women, they will misunderstand. It seems like you still don't understand your charm?" Song Jiwen shook his head with a smile and said to Poplar Fruit, "Although you are not as handsome as me now, you are still on par with me. Your sister." Poplar Fruit shook his head and laughed. Song Jiwen came over and said with a smile, "I am not bragging. When I went out to play in the past, as long as I treated a girl as gently as you, I guarantee that I would hook up with her in a few days." Seeing Poplar Fruit staring at him, Song Jiwen raised his hands with a smile and said, "Isn't this an example? You know that I have already turned over a new leaf. Although you are slightly inferior to me in terms of looks, but you are tall enough. Moreover, you are a famous person." Song Jiwen said, "If you are still so gentle and considerate to all women, not to mention Fong Beibei, even if it was anyone else who was your girlfriend, they would not feel safe." Poplar Fruit sat there in silence. Song Jiwen did not care about him. He drank a mouthful of beer and continued, "Let me take Xueqing as an example. How much did she like you in the past? But you did not know at all, right? Isn't it because you were too good to her, but you did not accept her and hurt her all over? In the end, didn't she go back home crying?" Song Jiwen was too familiar with Poplar Fruit and knew this guy's temper. If he said it harshly, it would be able to wake him up. Poplar Fruit was silent. "So, if you want to be romantic, then continue to flirt everywhere. I am using double quotes here," Song Jiwen said as he drank. "If you want harmony in your family, then do what you advised me in the past and stop flirting everywhere. Of course, this flirting is also in double quotes, because what you did was not flirting. You were too loving." Song Jiwen laughed and said, "You have to take care of yourself. Don't always be so good to women other than your girlfriend. You have to know that the one you married in the end is Beibei. If you really love her and want her to be happy, then you have to think more about her." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1004. Haven't I considered it for her? Poplar Fruit's temper rose. He slammed the bottle on the table and said, "Haven't I treated her well enough? Ever since I met her, she has always been jealous. She has always been jealous." Poplar Fruit complained. He had been suppressing this anger in his heart for a long time. "Haven't I always followed her? Yes, I may have made her feel a little insecure, but didn't I make it clear to her that I only have her in my heart? She can rest assured." Poplar Fruit said. But after she agreed, she became jealous again. Can't she trust me a little? Is it because of Gong Jiwenji? Song Jiwen interrupted Poplar Fruit's complaints and said. It's normal for her to feel insecure. But she can't be jealous every day, right? She's not annoyed, but I am annoyed. Poplar Fruit said, unconvinced. Then what do you want? Song Jiwen asked. You can't go on, so you want to break up? Hearing this harsh word, Poplar Fruit immediately fell silent. You don't want to? That's right. You still like her. Song Jiwen laughed. Everyone has shortcomings. If you want to go on, you have to learn to accept her shortcomings. Song Jiwen advised. Poplar Fruit sighed and said, even if she's jealous, she can't break up with me. Song Jiwen was shocked. He looked at Poplar Fruit and said, is it that serious? Yes, if it wasn't for this reason, I wouldn't be so depressed to ask you out for a drink. Poplar Fruit took a sip of soda and said, then we should really make a toast. Song Jiwen opened a few more bottles of beer and pushed them in front of Poplar Fruit and said, drink, drink, I can't drink alone. You've opened so much wine, you'll have to drink it all yourself later. Yanghua smiled and said somewhat mischievously, damn, why didn't you say that when I asked the boss to bring the beer? Song Jiwen was dumbfounded. He looked at the beer on the table and said, why don't I drink? It's rare to come out to drink and eat skewers with a buddy. How can I not be happy? Afraid of drunk driving? It's okay, I'll find a designated driver later. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, forget it, we agreed not to drink. Drinking always messes things up, and a daughter. Up if you don't drink, then I'll drink. What a waste. Song Jiwen shook his head and said, what else do you want to talk about? Today, I'll be your caring sister. Poplar Fruit smiled and raised his soda. He gently touched the bottle with Song Jiwen and said, there's nothing to talk about. After what you said just now, I understand. It's good that you understand. Song Jiwen smiled and said, to be honest, I now know that you also have so many troubles. Can't I have troubles? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. You know, in the eyes of my daughter, you are the representative of the perfect Prince Charming. Song Jiwen smiled and said, in our unit, my daughter sometimes talks about all kinds of good things about you. Handsome and rich. In the eyes of men, you are also a winner in life. Song Jiwen smiled and said, you have such a cute and well-behaved daughter and such a beautiful wife. You also admire me? Poplar Fruit looked at him strangely and asked. Song Jiwen rolled his eyes and said, my mother admires you, but I don't. Raising a child is so troublesome. 2 years ago, weren't you tortured by Kiki? That's because the hard times are over. Poplar Fruit thought of the difficult years when Kiki was just born. He smiled and said, even if it's hard, it's still the end. The two of them chatted for a long time until Song Jiwen was drunk and Poplar Fruit sent him back. Song Jiwen was not completely drunk, but he was a little tongue-tied and began to talk a little. Women are so troublesome. It's so troublesome. Song Jiwen put down the back of his seat and muttered, how good it was to be free in the past. I loved when I wanted to, but now I have to be an infatuated man. Are you talking about me? Poplar Fruit asked strangely. Who's talking about you? I'm talking about me. Song Jiwen was really drunk and spilled out some words that he usually did not want to say. How did you become an infatuated man? Poplar Fruit asked. Song Jiwen shook his head and said, it's all because of that little Chili. Recently, I've been thinking about her so much that my head is swelling. Poplar Fruit asked in surprise, you like her? Song Jiwen hesitated for a moment and nodded. He chuckled and said, Lao Gua, do you think I'm crazy? She's so violent, but I still like her? No, although she's a little better, she's still very kind. If you like her, it means that you have good taste. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, but I really didn't expect that the two of you would quarrel every day. How did you fall in love? I don't know either. Maybe it's because we quarreled, and then I felt that she was quite cute, so I started to slowly fall in love with her. Song Jiwen said with some melancholy. It was really strange for such a sentence to come from the mouth of the great love saint. Then have you told her? Poplar Fruit asked. Song Jiwen shook his head and said, no, she doesn't know either. Poplar Fruit continued to ask. Song Jiwen hesitated for a moment and said, I don't think so. F***ck. Mosquito, when did you become so wishy-washy? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, If you like her, you have to say it. Isn't this what you told me before? When did you become so wishy-washy? Song Jiwen turned his head and glanced at Poplar Fruit and said, We're too familiar with each other. It's not easy to do it. If I confess, what if we can't even be friends? Do you want me to help you? Poplar Fruit laughed. Forget it, don't worry about my business. Song Jiwen shook his head and burped. You should sort out your own feelings first. It's a mess. This burp suddenly filled the car with the smell of alcohol. Poplar Fruit quickly opened the window and said, Hey, if you feel uncomfortable, just say it. Don't puke in my car. I won't puke. Don't worry about my alcohol tolerance. Song Jiwen said with a smile. But it's a little rushed. Hurry up, find a place to go to the toilet. Go home. Poplar Fruit said angrily. I can't wait. Quick, 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 stop the car. Otherwise I'll poop in my pants. Song Jiwen yelled with the help of alcohol. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to park the car on a slightly remote side of the road. There were only walls and dark shadows of trees nearby. Song Jiwen ran down and took care of himself under the tree. How immoral. Poplar Fruit shook his head and laughed. He walked over and opened the zipper. Walla walla. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than over equal to slash. Chapter 1005. After Poplar Fruit left, Fong Beibei's heart felt as though it had been hollowed out, empty and without a place to settle down. Even the loud sound of Poplar Fruit slamming the door was like the sound of a bell in an ancient temple, ringing in her mind and stirring her thoughts into a ball of paste. She curled up blankly at the foot of the bedroom wall, hugging her legs. Her tears were like a flood that had broken through a dam, flowing down her cheeks and along her knees, washing down, gathering into a stream, a river, and a vast ocean. There was no sound of crying, only a dry pain that clutched at her heart. Fong Beibei had actually heard about Poplar Fruit's ex-girlfriend, Lu Yunran from Poplar Fruit, but Poplar Fruit had only mentioned it once, so Fong Beibei didn't know the details. She only knew that when Lu Yunran saw Kiki, she broke up with her and never came back. And Poplar Fruit didn't seem to have thought of chasing her back. Could it be that Poplar Fruit would also be like this, never turning back once he left? Fong Beibei felt as though a knife was being twisted in her heart, as remorse filled her entire mind, but the more she regretted, the more powerless she felt. Not knowing how long had passed, the bedroom door was opened, but Fong Beibei was in a daze and didn't notice it at all. Kiki had been playing downstairs for a long time, but because there were no adults to restrain her, Kiki still played downstairs even when it was time to sleep. She only came up to find Fong Beibei to sleep when she felt sleepy. She was the one who opened the door. Kiki got down from Goldie's body and patted Goldie's head with her chubby little hand, saying, All right, Kiki, open the door. Thank you, Goldie. Good night, Goldie. Goldie looked at her and wagged its tail vigorously. It barked twice in a low voice, then turned around and walked down the stairs with small steps. Its nest was downstairs, and Goldie was very self-aware. Kiki pushed the door open and peeked inside. Her gaze fell on Beibei, who was curled up in a corner. She blinked her eyes in confusion. After entering the room, she turned around and closed the door before skipping over to Fong Beibei's side. Sister Beibei, why are you crying? Kiki hugged Fong Beibei's arm, shook it, and asked. Kiki's voice gradually woke Fong Beibei from her chaotic thoughts. She raised her head, but tears had already covered her red and swollen eyes. She could not see the outside world clearly, only a vast expanse of whiteness. Kiki sensibly went over and wiped Fong Beibei's tears with her little hand. She also persuaded her like a little adult. Sister Beibei, are you unhappy because Papa went out? Don't be unhappy. Kiki didn't cry because Papa has to go out to work, so he can't accompany Kiki. Fong Beibei sniffled and said with a hoarse voice, Kiki is so sensible. Sister Beibei is fine, Kiki, don't worry. But how could this be considered as being fine? Because of Chi-Chi's comforting words, Fong Beibei's tears flowed even faster than before, like a river that had just been released. Kiki seemed to be infected by Fong Beibei's tears. Her eyes began to redden. She shook Fong Beibei's hand and earnestly persuaded, "No, Sister Beibei, don't cry. Papa is not at home, but Kiki is with you. If Papa doesn't tell Kiki a bedtime story, Kiki won't cry." Although she said this, Kiki's voice began to choke. The more Kiki comforted her, the more sad Fong Beibei was. She even began to sob. Hearing Fong Beibei's cry, Kiki finally couldn't hold back her tears. She cried while shedding golden beans. "Sister Beibei, woo, don't cry, woo, you cry. Kiki also wants to cry, wah." She didn't want to cry, but feeling Fong Beibei's emotions, Kiki didn't know why she began to feel sad. As a result, the emotions of the two affected each other. And in the end, they hugged each other and cried bitterly. "Kiki, don't cry, woo. Sister Beibei, don't cry, woo." Fong Beibei hugged Kiki in her arms. The two of them comforted each other and wiped each other's tears. However, the more they did this, the sadder they cried. After crying for a long, long time, the two of them cried until they didn't have much strength. Even their cries became very, very soft. At this time, Fong Beibei's phone rang. It rang and broke and rang again. Fong Beibei only noticed it the second time. She quickly carried Kiki out, but it wasn't Poplar Fruit calling. It was Chun Anlin, sister-in-law. Fong Beibei was very disappointed, but she still picked up the phone. Chun Anlin didn't notice Fong Beibei's hoarse voice. She said anxiously to Fong Beibei, "Beibei, what happened to Brother Yang? Why did he suddenly look for Song Jiwen to drink tonight?" Then the two of them got drunk. Song Jiwen just came back and said that Poplar Fruit went to look for that woman called Zheng Yujia. There was actually a misunderstanding. Poplar Fruit did go to look for Zheng Yujia. Song Jiwen was right. However, when Chen Anlin saw Song Jiwen, he came up drunk. Poplar Fruit didn't come up, and Song Jiwen didn't say anything in detail. He closed the door, took a shower, and went to sleep. Therefore, Chen Anlin didn't know the cause and effect of this matter at all. However, in Fong Beibei's ears, these words were like 9 thunderbolts roaring in her ears. In an instant, the last remaining bit of hope in her heart was crushed. Poplar Fruit was drunk, and went to look for Zheng Yujia. The phone slipped and fell to the ground. It bounced on the carpet and buckled. Fong Beibei hugged Kiki and fell weakly to the foot of the bed. Some memories began to emerge in her mind. Back then, when Zheng Yujia quarreled with her, she had left a ruthless sentence before she left. "Listen to me. Don't ever let go of his hand. If you give me a chance, I won't hesitate to snatch him away from you." Now, it seemed that it wasn't her who took away Poplar Fruit. It was her who pushed Poplar Fruit into Zheng Yujia's arms. Fong Beibei felt like her most precious and important thing had been ruthlessly ripped from her body. She stretched out her hand, but couldn't grab it. There was an intense pain that spread from her heart to her whole body. It was so painful that her soul was torn apart. It was indescribable. "Ouch!" Kiki cried out because she fell on her butt. This cry made Fong Beibei burst into tears again. "Kiki, your father doesn't want me anymore." Fong Beibei cried loudly. Her hands were weak, and she curled up weakly. Kiki, who was in so much pain that she didn't feel sleepy, also cried in a daze. She hugged Fong Beibei's arm and cried, Papa doesn't want Kiki anymore." It's not that he doesn't want Kiki, but he doesn't want Sister Beibei anymore. Uncle doesn't want the baby anymore. He doesn't want the baby anymore. Woo. How can he not want the baby? Fong Beibei's voice was twitching, and she intermittently corrected Kiki's words. However, in the end, she kept talking to herself. These words were like a big hand, fiercely grasping her heart. It was so painful that she almost fainted. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1006. Although she understood from Sister Beibei that her father didn't want Kiki, Kiki still felt incomparably sad and unbelievable about the fact that her father didn't want Sister Beibei. Woo, you're lying. Papa wouldn't care about that. Kiki's nose was also stuffed, and she cried out in a muffled voice. Papa didn't want Sister Beibei. Kiki couldn't understand the logic behind it, and she kept questioning. Papa said that Kiki wants to call you Mama Ma. Kiki choked out each word. She recalled that before her father went to Jiangnan, he had tried to ask for her opinion when she was having fun. She found it hard to believe that her father would change so much, and she cried out, "Why would Papa not want Sister Bebe?" Yes, why would it be like this? Could it be because Kiki didn't want to call Sister Bebe Mama Ma? However, it wasn't that Kiki didn't want to call her, it was that she was used to calling Sister Bebe, and it felt weird to call her Mama Ma. He just doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. Fong Bebe cried, like my daughter who was younger than Kiki and hadn't grown up yet. She shook her head and cried. He wants to find another Mama Ma for Kiki. He doesn't want me anymore. Woo 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 woo. No, Kiki doesn't want another Mama Ma. Kiki seemed to be very frightened. She cried out, hugging Fong Bebe's neck and twisting it like a shrew. Sister Bebe is Kiki's Mama Ma. Kiki doesn't dare to disobey Papa. Kiki wants to call her Mama Ma. Fong Bebe was even more moved when she heard this. She hugged Kiki and cried until the sky turned dark. Crying until she didn't know what she was crying about. Crying until she didn't even know when Kiki was tired from crying. Crying until she fell asleep in her arms. At this time, what was Poplar Fruit doing? As he said to Song Jiwen, after sending Song Jiwen back to the community downstairs, Poplar Fruit drove to Zheng Yujie's place. He wasn't drunk, he was sober than ever. After hesitating for a moment, Poplar Fruit knocked on Zheng Yujie's door. Zheng Yujie saw Poplar Fruit through the peephole, and opened the door with a look of surprise. She had just returned home, and hadn't even changed her clothes. She was eating the lunch she brought back at the table. Therefore, there was nothing inappropriate for children. It was very normal. However, when she saw Poplar Fruit, she seemed to be dyed with a layer of beautiful halo, and became energetic. I have something to tell you. Poplar Fruit looked at her and said. Zheng Yujie was very happy. She reached out to pull Poplar Fruit and said, come in and talk. Poplar Fruit's body moved slightly, not letting her pull him. Then he pointed to the living room with his right hand and said, go in. Zheng Yujie felt that Poplar Fruit's mood was not good. The smile and joy on her face froze. The two of them entered the house. Yanghua looked at Zheng Yujie's bag and jacket that were thrown on the sofa. He looked at the half-eaten lunchbox that she was still eating. He looked at the makeup and lipstick on her face that had not been removed. His heart slightly shrank. Poplar Fruit sighed and sat down on the sofa's armrest. He pointed to the lunch on the coffee table and said, you eat first. After eating, we'll talk. Zheng Yujie was not as slow as other girls. She clearly felt the indifference of Poplar Fruit's body. Her heart was in her mouth, and she vaguely guessed what Poplar Fruit wanted to say to her. She walked to the coffee table, gently patted the lid of the lunchbox with her left hand, and grabbed the lunchbox and the bag under it with her right hand. She turned around, stepped on the trash can, and stuffed it in. With a bang, the lid closed, and the lunchbox disappeared in front of her eyes. Zheng Yujie stood, looked at Poplar Fruit with her stubborn eyes, and said in a calm voice, I'm full, say it. It seemed that he was destined to hurt these two girls today. Poplar Fruit avoided Zheng Yujie's gaze, sighed, and said, in the future we should meet as little as possible, and then. Why? Before Poplar Fruit could finish, he was interrupted by Zheng Yujie. Because today I had a quarrel with Bebe. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and said. He raised his head, but saw Zheng Yujie's red eyes. Zheng Yujie took a deep breath, endured, and asked, so you're here to draw a line with me? You quarreled with her, so you want to break up with me? It's not breaking up, just meeting less. We're still friends, but I didn't do well in the past, so you misunderstood. Poplar Fruit explained with difficulty. What did I misunderstand? Zheng Yujie shouted. 2 lines of tears flowed out from her eyes, washing away her eyeshadow, drawing 2 tear stains. We're just friends, this distance is clear. Poplar Fruit felt that he suddenly became very clumsy. A man who could speak frankly in front of thousands of people, now became inarticulate, so anxious that he stood up. Is it because I said something about her? Is that why you're blaming everything on me? Zheng Yujie's tears flowed down her face as she raised her head in defiance. She looked straight at Yanghua and asked, what did I say wrong? Ask yourself in these 2 years, did I help you more? Or did she help you more? Yujia. Poplar Fruit was anxious, he shouted. I'm not talking about this. I don't care what you quarreled about, but love is not as simple as who helped who. And it has nothing to do with material things. Even if Bebe doesn't have money, in my heart, she's still the most important, do you understand? Then what about your feelings? Zheng Yujia wiped her tears, still stubbornly stood there, and asked, I've done so much for you. Don't you feel my feelings? Poplar Fruit bitterly smiled and said, Yujia, I'm grateful for everything you've done, really. But I already have someone I love. Even if I'm grateful, I can't give her up to love you. Do you understand? If Poplar Fruit was a man who liked the new and hated the old, then Zheng Yujia would not like him. But at this time in her mind, how could she think about all this rationally? I don't understand. I really don't understand. Zheng Yujia's stubborn spirit could no longer support her tired body. She was about to fall down. Poplar Fruit hurriedly went forward to support her. Zheng Yujia patted him, for the first time in front of Poplar Fruit. She was so weak, she cried. I don't understand where I can't compare to her. Why don't you want to choose me? Poplar Fruit, you're unfair to me, do you know that? When Poplar Fruit heard this, his heart ached. He remembered Song Jiwen's words to him. He could not help but say, Yujia, love is unfair. If you miss it, then you miss it. My fairy sister, sob sob, my heart is broken all over the ground. That scumbag who acted in human poisoning. Who else can I choose? Chapter 1007. Poplar Fruit felt that he was inhumane. Today he had to make 2 good girls cry. Even a proud and strong person like Zheng Yujia had to put down her innate arrogance and wipe her tears in front of him. Her makeup was all over the place. Poplar Fruit leaned over and took a tissue box. He pulled out a few tissues and handed them to Zheng Yujia. Zheng Yujia looked at him motionlessly with tears in her eyes. After he gently smudged her makeup, her breathtakingly beautiful face moved forward. She wanted Poplar Fruit to wipe it off for her. You're too gentle to all women. Poplar Fruit hesitated. He remembered what Song Jiwen had said to him. He raised his hand, but then he put it down again. Poplar Fruit steeled his heart and stuffed the tissues in his hand into Zheng Yujia's hands. Wipe your tears. Look, you've become a little kitten. Zheng Yujia didn't move. Her tears flowed even harder. Poplar Fruit sighed. He was still soft-hearted. He pulled out a few more tissues and wiped Zheng Yujia's face to remove the black marks. He said, Why are you torturing yourself like this? Zheng Yujia didn't speak. Her tears continued to flow as if she wanted to vent all the grievances she had suffered over the past year. We really can't go on like this. Although Poplar Fruit was soft-hearted, he still had to say what he needed to say. I was wrong in the past. I didn't know anything. I made Bebe sad. Today, she almost broke up with me. She broke up with you, and you came to me to vent your anger? Zheng Yujia said. Her voice was a little agitated. She doesn't want you, but I want you. She doesn't care about you, but I do. She doesn't cherish you, but I do. Why won't you give me a chance? Behind him, Zheng Yujia almost roared. Poplar Fruit was silent. What he did the most today was sigh in silence. After a while he said, I'm sorry. You only know how to say sorry to me. Zheng Yujia shouted. You only know how to bully me. Do you know how good I am to you? Do you know that? Every time you encounter something, I help you. Have I ever complained? What am I doing? I'm just thinking about you. Zheng Yujia felt more wronged as she spoke. Even if you said that you were with another woman, I didn't force you. I was still good to you as always. I know, Poplar Fruit said. Have I made a fuss in front of you? Did he ask you to do anything that made you feel awkward? Zheng Yujia asked. No. I've always been the one, I've been constantly. Poplar Fruit nodding his head. I've been giving in until I have no way out. Now you want to deprive me of the right to wait. Zheng Yujia weakly fell on the sofa and held her head. She didn't want to show her weak appearance in front of Poplar Fruit. It's not that I don't want you to wait. Poplar Fruit had a headache. His nose was sore from hearing Zheng Yujia's words. He said softly, Yujia, You know that there is no end to waiting. You are still young. I don't want to delay your future. Can't I do it? Zheng Yujie wiped her tears, raised her head, and stubbornly looked at Poplar Fruit and said, There are still a lot of good men in this world. Don't give up on the entire forest just because you see me, Yangguo earnestly advised. No, I want you. Zheng Yujie looked at him with tears in her eyes. Zheng Yujie was not the kind of woman who relied on her tears to gain a man's sympathy. Even if she shed tears, she did not have that kind of miserable feeling. On the contrary, her back was straight even as she shed tears. She was not convinced and did not shrink back. Her performance was no longer the soft beauty of a woman. Instead, there was a kind of handsomeness that transcended gender. Her short hair stuck to her cheeks. There was a kind of charm that Poplar Fruit didn't dare to look straight at. Look at me. Why don't you dare to look at me? Zheng Yujie asked. Poplar Fruit sighed and said, Yujie, I'm not worth your persistence. Really? I do. Zheng Yujie raised her head. Her tears had stopped, but her eyes were still red. Don't be like this. Seeing you like this, my heart doesn't feel good, Poplar Fruit said with a frown. I don't need you to worry about me. Zheng Yujie sniffed and said, The decision I made is my own choice. I'm willing to bear all the consequences. But you can wait for me for a year or two, but can you wait for me for a lifetime? Poplar Fruit didn't give up persuading her. He said, I won't separate from her. We will get married in the future. If you go on like this, you will only delay your youth and delay your happiness. I don't care. I don't care if I wait for you for a lifetime. Because only you are my happiness. Zheng Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit affectionately and confessed. Humans are not plants or trees. It's not like they don't have feelings. Poplar Fruit was moved by Zheng Yujie, but he knew that today he couldn't just be moved. Today he must harden his heart and be a responsible man. Yujie, I'm sorry, Poplar Fruit said sadly. I still have to reduce the time I spend alone with you. It doesn't matter. As long as I can continue to wait for you and look at you, I will be very happy. Zheng Yujie retreated again. She didn't care about her dignity, nor did she care about her pride. She just wanted to hold on to her last hope. I won't force you. Poplar Fruit sighed. In the end, he still couldn't be a hard-hearted bad man. He said, But I hope you can think it through in the future and find the happiness that truly belongs to you. Zheng Yujie didn't speak. She just looked at him. At this moment, she suddenly became like my daughter. She was easily satisfied. It was really like what she said. Looking at Poplar Fruit, she was already very happy. Poplar Fruit looked at his phone. It was already late. It was more than 10 o'clock. He stood up and said, I'm leaving. You should also rest early. But Zheng Yujie didn't move. She just looked at him affectionately. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to look at her anymore. He steeled his heart and turned around to walk towards the door. Just as his hand touched the doorknob, a burst of fragrance suddenly attacked him. Zheng Yujie hugged him from behind and pressed her body tightly against Poplar Fruit's back. Poplar Fruit felt her amazing elasticity and softness. His body suddenly froze. Don't go. Stay with me for one night. Just one night, okay? Zheng Yujie begged softly with a soft voice that he had never heard before. It was already late at night. Kiki had already been placed on her small bed to sleep. Feng Beibei hugged a pillow and curled up on the sofa. She looked tired and sad. The clock above the living room passed by minute. Gradually, it passed 12 o'clock. Midnight had quietly arrived. A look of despair slowly climbed onto Feng Beibei's lifeless eyes. Her heart hurt so much that she couldn't fall asleep. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 1008. In the end, they were still too tired mentally. Although the two of them went to take a bath together and played in the water for a while, in the end, they still returned to the big bed and hugged each other to sleep. After a night, nothing happened, but when they woke up the next day, the relationship between Poplar Fruit and Feng Beibei seemed to have become better. Perhaps this was the improvement after the big fight? Now they seemed to have really reached the fusion of their hearts. When they looked at each other, it was as if they were 100% in tune with each other. It was as if they reflected the auspicious and festive atmosphere of the world. If Song Ji-won was here, he would definitely have goosebumps all over his body. He would not be able to stand it at all. He would shout, "That's enough. Do you have to show off your love just to set the table?" Of course, there was a little person who was confused by the two of them. When Kiki woke up in the morning, she was stunned for a long time when she saw her father, who woke her up. She remembered what had happened last night and burst into tears. Poplar Fruit hurriedly comforted the little fellow. He did not know whether to laugh or cry when he found out that she could not see Fong Beibei. She thought that Fong Beibei was driven away by her father. Especially when she woke up, her emotions were magnified, and she cried very sadly. "Baby, baby." Poplar Fruit hurriedly ran downstairs with Kiki in his arms. He carried her to Fong Beibei, who was hanging clothes under the morning sun on the balcony. He pointed at Fong Beibei and smiled at Kiki. "Kiki, look, isn't your Beibei sister here?" "Woo-woo," Sister Beibei said that Papa doesn't want her anymore. Kiki wiped her eyes and said while sobbing, "What do you mean he doesn't want her anymore? How could Papa not want Beibei's sister?" Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Fong Beibei also waved at Kiki through the glass window. Because Kiki didn't listen to Papa. Kiki's voice became softer and softer. What? Poplar Fruit didn't quite understand the logic behind this. Kiki suddenly broke free from her father's arms and stood between Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei. She pouted and said, "From now on, Kiki won't call Beibei sister anymore. Papa is not allowed to abandon her." "If you don't call me Sister Beibei, then what should I call you?" Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. At this time, Fong Beibei came in with a basin. Kiki turned around and hugged her calf. She said loudly, "Call me Mama Ma." Kiki only had one Mama Ma. "Papa, don't let anyone else be Kiki's Mama Ma." It seemed that she had really woken up. The little girl actually said such a long string of logical words. Poplar Fruit understood. Fong Beibei also squatted down and intimately hugged Kiki. She looked at Poplar Fruit a little shyly. Could this be considered a blessing in disguise? Before, Poplar Fruit secretly persuaded Kiki for a long time, but he didn't succeed. This time, Kiki was finally willing to call Fong Beibei Mama. Although this Mama was just like Poplar Fruit, this Papa, Kiki liked to use her own unique coquettish tone. Her pronunciation was not standard, but in Poplar Fruit's heart, flowers bloomed. He smiled, but pretended to be reserved. He nodded and said, "Okay. If Kiki calls Mama Ma, then Papa will definitely not want Mama Ma. Our family will be together forever." It could be seen how happy Poplar Fruit was. He even learned Kiki's tone. "Mama Ma, Mama Ma, Mama Ma." Kiki hurriedly shouted loudly. Even Goldie, who had begun to eat breakfast next to them, was startled. It licked its mouth, turned its head, and looked at its little master in confusion. Its tail swung, as if it was thinking about why its little master was so noisy. Although he said he was back, it happened to be the weekend, so Poplar Fruit didn't need to go back to school to teach the students. Today he was at home, doing housework with Fong Beibei, and going to buy vegetables and cook together. Of course, the two people who were in the honeymoon period hadn't seen each other for several days. The most important thing was to quickly finish the words that they hadn't finished in the past few days. What they talked about the most was Poplar Fruit's experience in Jiangnan. However, unlike before, when Fong Beibei was always jealous, now Fong Beibei's heart was only concerned about Poplar Fruit. She calmly treated Duan Xueqing, who used to have feelings for Poplar Fruit. Because of trust, Fong Beibei's feelings at this moment were completely different. She suddenly realized that she was so lucky to have such an outstanding Poplar Fruit, who only had feelings for her. The other women were so pitiful, especially Duan Xueqing. Fong Beibei's eyes welled up with tears as she listened to those Korean dramas. If not for Poplar Fruit's words, she really couldn't imagine what kind of pain Duan Xueqing had gone through. First, she met a man who she thought she liked in the midst of her heartbreak. However, this relationship hadn't even started yet. Just as she was adjusting her mentality and trying to start a new relationship, she realized that it was all a scam from the beginning to the end. Her heart was ruthlessly cut by a knife, So much so that it didn't heal even after half a year. However, just as she was gradually giving up, he came back again. He came back to save her. Duan Xiueqing, who had just been rescued, was still in a daze. She didn't understand. She didn't understand. She didn't understand whether Pai Dinwan was deceiving her feelings, or whether he really loved her. In fact, she didn't even think about whether she should go and see him. She didn't even consider asking the doubts in her heart face to face when she had already given up. However, after Pai Dinwan's earth-shattering collision, Duan Xiueqing understood and figured out the answer to all her questions. However, it was too late. Even if she cried in regret and promised the him in her memory that she would start over with him, it was too late. He was already gone. What was the point of regretting it? That's why we have to cherish it. Cherish that we can be together now. Cherish that we can love each other and care for each other. Poplar Fruit said as he hugged Fang Beibei's hand. But senior sister Duan is too pitiful. Fang Beibei cried. She was so touched by Pai Dinwan's sacrifice that it was as if she had seen the classic "I'm sorry, I love you" scene in Korean dramas. She said, "If Big Brother Bai didn't die, they would be very happy." Yes, Poplar Fruit sighed and said, "Every time I think of this, I want to beat up the poor. Oh, I'm wrong. I want to beat up Pai Dinwan. I'm really too impulsive. If he can come back, it's good to let me beat him up." What about senior sister Duan? Fang Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit with tears in her eyes and asked, "What about her in the future?" "In the future? Maybe, things will get better." Poplar Fruit was silent. He also didn't know. Although Duan Xiueqing didn't want to die now, she still looked like she had nothing to live for. Who knew what would happen to her in the future? I hope that senior sister Duan can live well and slowly walk out of this sadness. In the future, she will meet a good man. He doesn't need to be too smart or too complicated. As long as he loves her and stays with her for a lifetime, that will be enough. The kind Fang Beibei clasped her hands in front of her and sincerely prayed for Duan Xiueqing. There will be. Poplar Fruit hugged her and said with certainty, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1009. Everyone can see this chapter as a future chapter or a side story. The main character is Duan Xiueqing. Today will be the end of her story. July 2015. It was a summer. The sun was bright and the weather was hot. It was a summer that could melt the cold ice into warm spring water. The continuous shade of the trees in Jiangnan brought a trace of coolness to the world. It also made the joyful cicadas sing even more vigorously. The wildflowers by the river were in full bloom like a fiery red cloud. Looking at the situation, it was as if they wanted to compete with the sun in the sky. In the distance, through the dense cyan road, a white bicycle slowly drove over. It was a beautiful girl like a fairy. She was wearing a cream-colored long dress. It was like a cloud that set off her quiet and elegant face. Looking at her calm and indifferent expression, she was like a pure white lotus that didn't belong to this mortal world. She was incompatible with the chaos of the outside world. Squeak. A crisp sound was heard, accompanied by the girl's painful groan. When she braked, she used too much force and the old bicycle suddenly dropped its chain. The front of her calf scraped against the wheel. Under the gray stain, there was a bright red patch. It wasn't broken, but it was very painful. Duan Xiueqing gently bit her lower lip. She reached out to touch the wound. Her clear eyes couldn't help but blink. However, she still gently patted the dust around her. She stood up straight and pushed the old bicycle that was clanking because of the drop chain to the front of the shop. The bicycle was only leaning against the wall in front of the shop. She skillfully pulled up the shutter door of the photo studio and took out the key to open the door. After the shutter door was pulled up, the summer sun spread in, chasing away the shadows and coolness. The photo studio that was closed for the night welcomed a new day. After Duan Xiueqing entered, she pulled the glass door shut. It was almost as if she was in her own home. She pressed the remote control for the air conditioner, then picked up a large feather duster, and gently swept the dust off the photos on the counter and the wall. In fact, when she cleaned every day, There was almost no dust, but she still insisted on doing it. The photo studio still looked the same. Even though more than 2 years had passed, the original photos were still hanging on the wall. Perhaps it was due to the owner's meticulous care, but the photo didn't turn yellow or old. Just like all the furnishings in the house, there were still some remnants of the old owner's aura. Duan Xueqing was like a pious monk on a pilgrimage in Tibet. She lingered in front of each photo for a long, long time. Not only was she dusting, but she was also carefully looking at each photo. It was as if behind each photo, there was a story that she could never finish reading. It was as if in each photo frame, there was a reflection of the image that she only knew now that she was reluctant to leave. Duan Xueqing spent most of the morning cleaning up. Duan Xueqing took some water from the bathroom in the back and gently wiped the tire marks off her legs. Duan Xueqing silently endured the stimulation of the wound that had already ruptured capillaries with the clear water. She didn't even let out a gasp of cold air. After cleaning up, Duan Xueqing went to the safe in the back and took out the lonely cell phone. 2 years had passed, and this old cell phone was outdated. Whether it was the appearance or the configuration, it had been abandoned by the times. However, Duan Xueqing still treasured it. It was because the old SIM card was still hidden in this cell phone. She couldn't bear to pay the bill and stop using it. She still saved a late text message that she had received 2 years ago when she found the cell phone. The screen lit up and quietly showed his last words. Xiaoqing, I'm sorry. In the end, there wasn't even a punctuation mark. In the past 2 years, her tears had dried up. She didn't let herself be sad or happy anymore. However, the calmness in her eyes still filled the air with a faint sadness. The cell phone still had power. Duan Xueqing carefully turned it off and carefully put it back into the safe again. She hid it well and locked it up as if she was storing a priceless treasure. She sat on the sofa in the shop and quietly read a book. She didn't leave even at noon. Lunch was a lunchbox that she brought. She just heated it up in the microwave in the back. After eating, she carefully cleaned it up, not wanting to leave any traces of oil. Her family also knew her habits. Only her brother called to ask about her at noon. Today, as usual, she sat quietly and read a book. She slowly waited until the sun set in the west before she packed up and went home. However, in the afternoon, an uninvited guest unexpectedly broke her peace. The glass door was pushed open, and the wind chime on the door rang. This beautiful sound that she had heard countless times woke Duan Xueqing up from her book. Duan Xueqing was a little confused. She looked at the person who came in and blinked her eyes. The person who came in was a big boy with a baby face. Of course, his skin was a little too dark, which ruined the delicate face that could be described with this year's buzzword, little fresh meat. Sorry to disturb you, boss. Hello, are you the boss? Black Fresh Meat saw that Duan Xueqing was a little shy. He scratched his head and asked very embarrassedly. After Duan Xueqing got over her confusion, her eyes immediately became cold. She raised her hand, pointed at the sign hanging outside the glass door, and said, "Closed." After so many years, she still hadn't changed. If she could be brief, she wouldn't say a word more. Black Fresh Meat quickly nodded and said, "Yes, yes. I know I saw it. But I'm here to apply for a job." Black Fresh Meat was afraid that Duan Xueqing would immediately ask him to leave, so he quickly said, "We're not hiring." Duan Xueqing still said faintly. In her words, she didn't hide the meaning of keeping people 1,000 miles away and not sending them off. Black Fresh Meat opened his mouth in disappointment. He bitterly bowed and said, "Sorry to disturb you." Just as he pulled open the glass door and was about to leave, Black Fresh Meat suddenly gritted his teeth, closed the door, and turned his head back. The wind chime on the door once again made Duan Xueqing, who had already lowered her head, look at him. "Boss, please give me a chance." Black Fresh Meat bowed apologetically and quickly introduced himself. "My name is Jingnan Nan. It's not the near and far. It's the respect for each other. It's the south of the country. But because my skin is quite dark, my friends call me Little Black." This lame joke didn't wait for Duan Xueqing's response. Jingnan Nan continued, "I just graduated from Jiangnan University this year. I've been especially fond of photography since I was young. I hope to become a professional photographer one day. Duan Xueqing frowned slightly. She had never had a good impression of people who kept pestering her. I heard that you haven't hired a photographer in your shop, so I want to give it a try. Jing Nannan also saw Duan Xueqing's reaction, but he still mustered up his courage and said, although I've never taken wedding photos, I've always liked to take pictures of beautiful things. I think that wedding photos are the most beautiful moment in a woman's life. As a photographer, we must make the best composition and capture this most beautiful moment for them. Duan Xueqing was stunned. Why did this sentence sound so familiar? It seemed that he, on the other side of time and space, had gently said similar words in front of her. But similar, after all, was just similar. Duan Xueqing shook her head and said, I'm sorry. Although it was short, it still expressed her firm reply. Jing Nannan was very depressed. He bowed again. Although he was disappointed, he still said politely, I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm really sorry. He opened the door to leave as if he was escaping. Duan Xueqing faintly sighed and lowered her head to continue reading. After a long time, the wind chime suddenly sounded again. Duan Xueqing looked up and saw Jing Nannan's head come in. He looked at her with some fear and said timidly, I'm sorry to disturb you again. I just saw that your bicycle chain fell off. I helped you put it back. I just wanted to let you know. Duan Xueqing was stunned. The boy who was still so tanned under the blazing sun was still so unique. Although his attentiveness was a bit out of her expectations, it was too obvious. How could he find a job like this? So stupid, looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 10:10. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei had completely reconciled. In other words, it was as if the young couple had a big fight, and then continued to stick together like glue after waking up the next day. Zheng Yujie was the only frustrated one, but she didn't despair. Instead, Poplar Fruit's toughness aroused her competitiveness. She was really not convinced. Why did Poplar Fruit always abandon her when making choices? She didn't believe that with her persistence, there would be a day when Poplar Fruit would be moved. However, that night, there was still a small tale that Poplar Fruit needed to continue to worry about. That night, the reason why Poplar Fruit returned home at 1 o'clock was not because he was asked to stay by Zheng Yujie. In fact, he politely rejected her at 11 o'clock and came out of Zheng Yujie's house. However, downstairs of Zheng Yujie's house, Poplar Fruit met Jing Mingsheng, who was smoking and waiting for him downstairs. If others saw it, they would definitely not believe that the middle-aged man standing next to his car under the light was the first leader of Guangdong province, the feudal official of Nanyue. However, he was indeed standing there. And he was waiting for Poplar Fruit to come down. Not to mention other things, just the fact that Zheng Mingsheng was Zheng Yujie's father made Poplar Fruit break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he didn't have any bad thoughts. Otherwise, if he did bad things upstairs, and then the girl's father was waiting downstairs, it would really be a big deal. However, even if Poplar Fruit didn't do anything bad, when he saw Zheng Mingsheng upstairs and noticed his meaningful eyes, Poplar Fruit was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole on the ground to hide in. Zheng Mingsheng had finished his work today, so he dropped by to visit his daughter. Their relationship seemed to have drifted apart, because he was too busy. She didn't expect to see Poplar Fruit rushing up the stairs when she arrived. Even Zheng Mingsheng didn't have time to stop Poplar Fruit. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end he didn't go up. He was worried that he might see something he didn't want to see. Thus, he had been waiting here all along. For a busy Guangdong province's leader, this golden rest time was wasted just like that while waiting. Uncle, I'm here to talk to Yujie about something. Poplar Fruit hurriedly explained. Zheng Mingsheng did not question him, but Poplar Fruit could see a trace of doubt in his eyes. However, Zheng Mingsheng didn't want to be entangled in this issue. He just looked at Poplar Fruit meaningfully and said, "You have a child and a girlfriend. Pay attention to your image." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only nod and agree. Zheng Mingsheng waited for him. Naturally, it wasn't just for these trivial matters of young people's love affairs. Originally, he also had the intention to see Poplar Fruit again. Since they happened to meet, he could bring it up. Previously, the matter between my daughter and Li Zichao implicated you. Please bear with it. Zheng Mingxing smiled and said. When Zheng Yujie asked Zheng Mingxing for help, she confessed to him about her grievances with Li Zichao. She didn't hide the fact that Poplar Fruit was just acting with her. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "It's okay. When I helped Yujie in the past, I also thought about it. This time it's all thanks to Uncle Zheng that such a big thing happened. Be careful in the future. Solve things slowly. Remember not to be impulsive." Zheng Mingxing waved his hand. He didn't care too much. What's your relationship with He Wenjue? Zheng Mingxing finally brought up the main topic. Poplar Fruit said honestly. He and I are good brothers. We've been through life and death together. He didn't need to hide it. If Zheng Mingxing wanted to investigate, with his status, what couldn't he find out? Zheng Mingxing looked at Poplar Fruit with surprise. Although he knew that Poplar Fruit and He Wenjue had a good relationship, he didn't know that it was so good. He family's child is not bad. He's good at both the pen and the sword. In the future, he can be like his father and achieve great things. Zheng Mingxing nodded slightly and praised. Poplar Fruit didn't have much political wisdom, but he could still vaguely feel that Zheng Mingxing had other intentions. Finally, Zheng Mingxing laughed and said, Commander, he is usually in the army, so we don't have much interaction. Only now did I know that he raised such an excellent son. Like father, like son. Big brother, he is really good. Poplar Fruit nodded honestly. Zheng Mingxing smiled and said, In the army, the biggest problem is the arrangement of the retired soldiers, especially the special forces. These soldiers have risked their lives for the country, but it's hard for them to find a suitable job after they retire. Poplar Fruit also nodded and said, Yes, there were a few big brothers in the special forces who retired, but the arrangement was for them to go back to their hometown's public security bureau. It's fine if they're not married, but there's a big brother whose wife has settled down in Guangdong province, so it's very troublesome for them to go back home to work. Poplar Fruit was just talking about the facts. He didn't know much about Zheng Mingxing's twists and turns, but he accidentally bumped into Zheng Mingxing's topic. Zheng Mingxing laughed and said, It's okay. Next time, if you meet Big Brother tell him that he can come to me if he's in trouble. After all, I'm the provincial party secretary of Guangdong province. I can't let our heroes bleed and cry. After chatting for a long time, Zheng Mingxing let Poplar Fruit go back. It was precisely for this reason that Poplar Fruit returned home very late. At that time he was wholeheartedly concerned about Feng Beibei, so Poplar Fruit didn't feel anything. Later, when he remembered this matter, Poplar Fruit finally understood. Zheng Mingxing talked about He family all night, but he didn't care about He Wenjue. He was eyeing He Wenjue's father, He Jiuming. Zheng Mingxing was still an outsider in Guangdong province. Although he had the help of an old subordinate of the deputy provincial level, and he had also roped in a few members of the standing committee in the past 6 months, he hadn't fully grasped the right to speak in the two groups. If he could have the support of He Jiuming, he could immediately reverse the situation. After reading so many novels and listening to so many people's bragging, Poplar Fruit still had some understanding. So his guess was not far from the truth. Although Poplar Fruit didn't have much interaction with Zheng Mingxing was Zheng Yujie's father after all. Out of guilt for Zheng Yujie, he hesitated for a while and decided to help. Of course, Poplar Fruit only played the role of a bridge. Poplar Fruit called Big Brother He and honestly explained the relationship, and then conveyed Zheng Mingxing's kindness to He Wenjue. He wanted to apologize to He Wenjue with guilt, but he didn't expect that He Wenjue didn't blame him at all. Haha, I understand. In fact, my father also has the idea of making friends with Secretary Zheng. Thank you, Poplar Fruit. He Wenjue said with a smile. Poplar Fruit didn't expect that a small character like him really played a small but important role in the game of gods in Guangdong province. This might be a good thing, but it had nothing to do with Poplar Fruit. He Wenjue and Poplar Fruit wouldn't get involved, especially Poplar Fruit. He would live in his simple ivory tower, looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 10-11. At the end of the semester, Higashiyama University began to get busy. The students, who were usually sloppy, walked faster and occupied the library, study rooms, and other precious places to study for the final exams. Although Poplar Fruit did not need to study for the exams, he was facing the biggest test since he started the remote teaching. The 6th grade children of Xiong Family Village were about to take the elementary school entrance examination. The elementary school entrance examination was really important to Poplar Fruit. Although others said that the best results could not be seen in 1 or 2 years, Poplar Fruit still hoped that this batch of children would be able to get good results. Even if they could not prove that it was due to their remote teaching, it was still a good start for these children's future. The year had just started, and the older children of other villages had not started to face this because their foundation was too far apart. They did not even have a good teacher like Teacher Meng to teach them, so Poplar Fruit wanted them to study for another year or 2 before taking the elementary school entrance examination. However, before that, the 2 public elective courses that Poplar Fruit was in charge of this semester had to end first. Poplar Fruit felt that he was an unqualified teacher because he had repeatedly changed the class schedule for several weeks throughout the semester due to work and personal matters. At the beginning of the semester, Poplar Fruit had emphasized the importance of attending class, but he himself had not done so. Fortunately, the students were quite cooperative and did not complain much. Moreover, they worked very hard in their studies. Although most of the students' learning results were not ideal due to their lack of talent, their learning attitude moved Poplar Fruit. Therefore, Poplar Fruit gave these students who studied very hard a very high average score. Although their final results were not good, they still got a score of more than 80 points. They did not work hard for nothing. Of course, what made Poplar Fruit even more satisfied was that there were nearly 20 students in these 2 classes who performed very well. Most of the students in the translation class came to study translation out of interest. They might be able to translate some theses and resumes themselves after this semester's classes, or help their superiors translate short articles, but they would not be able to reach the level that Poplar Fruit recognized. However, there were 5 or 6 students who had more potential. There were even 2 students who had a foundation in English, and were very close to being able to translate long web novels. What they lacked was experience in translation, and the accumulation of a huge amount of vocabulary. Poplar Fruit had interacted with these students before. Indeed, these students were very interested in translation, or rather the profession of translation, so Poplar Fruit was willing to help them. Next semester, there would be another public course for translation, but the level of the course would be relatively simple. Under Yonggua's suggestion, these students would continue to practice through the translation platform of Cinda Translation. In the future, when the training classes of Cinda Translation and New Translation Road Company were held again, they would also be the focus of selection. There were 10 students in the basic Swedish class, and they were already able to carry out some simple daily conversations. Don't look down on such a small improvement. Think about the difficulties they faced learning English from scratch. They had only attended more than 10 classes. Other than Poplar Fruit's professors, they had also started a lot of practice on their own. Poplar Fruit had talked to them before. They really wanted to learn a new language from the bottom of their hearts, and they were willing to put in effort and persevere. Next semester, which was the beginning of the next school year, Poplar Fruit would not be offering a public course for Swedish. This was because after a semester, an unfamiliar language was too challenging for non-language majors. Chen Zhongdai also had a detailed plan for Poplar Fruit's work. This semester, Poplar Fruit's Swedish class would be offered within the school. It would exist in the form of a specialized class, and it would only be open to language majors. Compared to the public course, the specialized class would not only double the class duration, but the difficulty and rhythm of the class would also be much higher than the public course. Even Poplar Fruit could not guarantee that the students who chose his specialized class would be able to achieve their goals. Therefore, his burden would be much heavier next semester. Among the 10 students, 2 of them were from other schools, and 1 of them was even a science and engineering student. This meant that they could not choose this course from the course selection system. Moreover, even if the school opened a side course and allowed them to choose the course, their grades and credits in this course would be of no use to them unless they double majored in another school. Unfortunately, Higashiyama University did not have a Swedish major. Maybe there would be one in the future, but not now. After communicating with the two students, Poplar Fruit was surprised to receive a reply that made him feel touched. They were willing to listen in and continue learning Swedish. This was a bit like the peasant brothers in ancient times who had to follow the rebels, even if they were not paid. However, it was not that exaggerated. If there was a chance in the future, Poplar Fruit would definitely do what his teacher, Chun Zongdai, said, do better and stand in a higher position, like a professor like Chun Zongdai who was the leader of the school. This way, he would have more power to speak and let more students who liked to study languages get the treatment they deserved. If Poplar Fruit's teaching performance this semester made Chun Zongdai satisfied, then Poplar Fruit's academic achievements were enough for Chun Zongdai to brag about for a long time. Because of the Duan Shueching and Beibei matters, Poplar Fruit wasted a lot of time in self-torture, and did not have time to do research. However, before and after that, Poplar Fruit had quite a lot of achievements. The first one, or rather, the one that was made public, was Poplar Fruit's translation theory. In the research team led by him and Professor Luo Lin, there were the best graduate students from Higashiyama University and Beijing International Studies University. The research had been going smoothly, so much so that even when Poplar Fruit was not there, the students used his ideas and examples to demonstrate. After a lot of case studies, they finally formed a mature report before the end of the semester. This thick report would also be edited and published by the publishing house of Beijing International Studies University. Even if it would never be a bestseller, it would play a disruptive and foundational role in the field of linguistics and translation. However, what everyone did not know was that what really made Chun Zongdai smile from ear to ear was not the fact that the entire research team had completed a well-developed translation theory, but Yangguo's own private research on the word-splitting method in teaching Chinese as a foreign language. Of course, Poplar Fruit had not developed any specific results yet. He was too busy. However, Chun Zongdai was happy to see that the word-splitting method had been proven on a large scale. In time, Poplar Fruit would be able to completely develop the word-splitting method, and then completely change the most basic structure of Chinese teaching. How wonderful would it be if the whole world learned Chinese? This chapter is a summary. First, I will explain Xiao Duan's arrangement. I know that many readers have a soft spot for Xiao Duan, and want Xiao Duan to have a good ending. Pai Dinwan was unanimously expressed that they did not like him, to the point of being disgusted. In fact, this character was both good and evil, but no one liked him. Xiao Han had thought for a long time and arranged for him to have an ending that everyone could see. As for Xiao Duan, she was like a snow lotus living on Mount Tianshan. Her aloofness doomed her to be unable to walk together with Poplar Fruit. Why did everyone have to force it? Xiao Han's design of a character like Poplar Fruit did not give everyone a strong sense of immersion. Poplar Fruit was a person with his own unique personality and opinions. It was impossible to satisfy everyone. Since it could not satisfy everyone, Xiao Han thought of a beginning for Xiao Duan to bid farewell to the past. Although it was called an ending, it was just the end of Xiao Duan's feelings in this book. She would still appear in the book in the future, but it would also be the beginning of everyone's imagination. You can imagine as much as you want. Jingnan Nan will be the embodiment of your imagination. He can be a domineering CEO who hides his identity, or a well-rounded expert who hides his abilities, or even a rookie who starts from scratch and works hard to make progress. In the end, he can melt the iceberg and let Xiao Duan let go of the past, finally reaping the most beautiful happiness. Xiao Duan will have a better life. Xiao Han wishes everyone, and also wishes Xiao Duan. Oh right, there's also Zheng Yujia. Queen Zheng's plot is not as simple as Xiao Duan's. Really, she will also be very happy, Xiao Han promises. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.